Ready? Okay. Hi, everyone. The East End. The East Amwell Planning Board meeting will come to order. This is the meeting of June 17th, 2025. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the East Amwell Township Joint Planning and Zoning Board pursuant to the resolution adopted on January 21st, 2025, with a meeting notice sent to the Hunterdon Democrat on January 24th, 2025. Further notice of this meeting being a public hearing on the housing element and fair share plan was sent to the Times of Trenton on June 3rd, 2025, and published on June 6th, 2025. A copy of the agenda for this meeting was posted on the municipal website, posted on the bulletin board, and filed in the clerk's office on June 12th, 2025. Mr. Candonacci?
Here.
Ms. Deadweiler?
Here.
Mr. DiPiero?
Here.
Mr. Kadri?
Here.
Mr. Kohat?
Here.
Mr. Lathan?
Here.
Mr. McGovern?
Here.
Mr. Nardi?
Here.
Ms. Wiggum?
Here.
Ms. Hussein?
Here.
And Ms. Teresi?
Here. We've got a full board. Very nice. It's always called, we don't always get that lucky. I don't think there are any agenda changes other than just us. Dante, just stand there.
Right. Pull the rabbit ears.
So the only agenda change is from the original where the completeness hearing came.
Yes, we removed the completeness hearing. They will be back, they will be here next month. And other than to note that we have a full agenda tonight, so we will try to get through as much as we possibly can today. That's about it. First, may I have a motion to open to the public for items not on the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Without objection, we are open to the public for items not on the agenda.
Quick request, could you all put your microphones closer to your mouth so we can hear what you're saying? Thank you.
Yeah, and you can just raise your hand every time we forget, and we'll know that you are keeping us on track. Anything else not on the agenda? Okay, seeing no one else, without objection, we are closed. Presentation of minutes. We actually have minutes from May 20th, but we have a couple changes to those, so we are gonna hold those, and next month, hopefully, we'll get through those and some backlog. So we'll just skip on the presentation of minutes. Resolutions for approval, we don't have any this month. We will have a few next month, I'm thinking. And then invoices, we have quite a number of invoices. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? And does anyone have any questions? No? All good? May I have, I guess I can probably do them all at once. May I have a motion to approve the Van Cleef, Mason, Griffin, Pearson, Kyle McManus, anyone else? All of the invoices on here. Can I have a motion from an alternate if?
Oh, yeah,
I'm
we have
sorry.
a full board today, so.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want, sorry. Yeah. Catanacci, and second?
Second.
May I have a second? Yeah, okay, all in favor? Thank you. It's passed. Okay. Moving right along, okay. Housing element and fair share plan public hearing. So Mr. Davis is here.
And because it's a public hearing, I'll just have them sworn in.
Okay.
Do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give before this board is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Do you see Tara here?
Tara, I think she said she was gonna be at West Amwell.
Oh, that's
tonight.
probably right.
Yeah, I
Yes,
don't
they-
think Tara's gonna be
yeah,
here.
okay, yeah. So this is a public hearing for the housing element fair share plan. And Mr. Davis is here to present it, to take us through it. We'll be voting on it. But before I do that, I just want to give like the fastest version of 40 years of housing history that I can possibly do without making a mistake.
Okay.
So keep me up. So I think it's in 1983, the Supreme Court ruled that.
Actually, 1975.
Okay, I stopped.
That was Mount Laurel 1.
Okay, so for a
Mount
really.
Laurel 2 was 83, and that was the, drastic one.
Okay, so for a really long time, the New Jersey Supreme Court has ruled that every municipality has an obligation, constitutional obligation, to provide an opportunity for a fair share of affordable housing. So what followed was many, many years of wrangling, right? Lots of lawsuits, lots of court orders, some alleged attempts to make things better from the legislators' part, and now we're here in 2025, right? Along the way, I think there were, however you count them, 3 rounds of obligations. East Amwell has met all of them, right? And I think I want to make the point that in addition to doing the right thing by meeting those, that also helps immunize us, is that the best way?
Provides
From-
immunity.
From builders remedy lawsuits, so we will continue doing the right thing and hopefully keeping that protection in place. In 2024, New Jersey state legislator and the governor passed a new law with a new framework, new processes, and extremely tight deadlines. Some people might say they're nearly impossible, I've heard. But nonetheless, we're here, and so we have a deadline of June 30th to adopt our 4th round obligation fair share plan.
And also file it.
And
To
file
it with the court.
And file it with court.
2 days for that.
Yeah,
After
so-
you adopt, yep.
Yeah.
Ideally after adoption.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, and then so starting in October, we got our number, if you will, from
Right.
DCA. So with the law change, they gave us a new administrative body. They didn't create a new administrative body. They took an administrative body that was doing something and gave DCA, Department of Community Affairs, the responsibility. We got the number 44, the township, and for present need, which I don't understand how that works, but that's okay. And the township committee adopted a resolution sort of recognizing that. And now we're here with the housing element fair share plan. Our responsibility is to hold a public hearing on this plan, which is today, and then to vote on it. And with that, what did I get wrong?
it was a great summary. Honestly, you took a lot of the work that I had to do. So thank you.
No, I did
Chair.
not. You've got a lot of work to do.
So basically, that was a very good high-level summary. I can add a little bit of detail. The previous rounds of affordable housing for East Amwell, the prior round the obligation was 40, and the 3rd round the obligation was 128, and in this round it's 44. So not a very drastically different number than we've seen in the past. The 3rd round was not just a 10-year round, so it was a little bit different. So basically, the way that what is in front of you tonight, this housing element fair share plan, which will ideally establish compliance with the new Fair Housing Act, is a plan that includes the UAW project, which I'm sure a lot of this board is likely familiar with, the use variance application that came to this board. It's a 24-unit, 100% affordable senior project that we're able to take some of the, while that may have been a contentious litigation, there's benefits to having those affordable units. So we're counting those affordable units in this plan. And very similarly to the 3rd round plan, there's an overlay zone that is being proposed. You may be familiar with the overlay zones that exist around the village area. There are 3 parcels.
Oh, I have maps made, everybody.
And there are maps in your files for reference if you're curious. Yep, exactly. So that shows the existing overlay zones and then the proposed overlay zone that is proposed of this plan. This plan does not effectuate any ordinances or anything like that. Essentially what the requirement is by June 30th, that the planning board is required to adopt a housing plan that establishes compliance for the 4th round. So the township received their number in October. They adopted the governing body adopted a resolution accepting that number. And just as a little bit of background, our office did do an evaluation of if there was any potential to lower that number. And based on our evaluation of the DCA methodology that was used, there was no way. The land capacity factor was 0, and that was really the only winning argument in that battle. So that was evaluated back in January. It came out as not worth it to pursue, so the governing body adopted a resolution accepting the number, the prospective need of 44, And that's really what this plan does, is we've been working in the background to do mapping exercises and kind of come up with the best plan for the fourth round. As the chair said, it's a very quick timeline that we were under in getting this together. Every municipality has been scrambling, every planner across the state is at, and every attorney who knows about affordable housing is at meeting after meeting this month. It's a really, really big time crunch, so it was a lot of work, and I appreciate everyone's effort in assisting us with it. So if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Oh, Emily, you did ask about the rehab component. I can speak to
The
that a
present
little bit.
need, you
Present
said,
need,
yeah,
So
yeah.
in the fourth round numbers, you'll note, and if you read the resolution or in the plan, it talks about a rehab component. So essentially, in each round of affordable housing, there is a prospective need, which is units that need to be built, more units that need to be added, and there's a rehab need, which evaluates the existing housing stock.
Okay.
That rehab number is not really concrete. It's kind of based off census data that is based off of lack of kitchen facilities and lack of plumbing facilities, or if you have a certain number of people per bedroom, it kind of is, it's really building code type things where the Fair Housing Act essentially looks at those units as, we have to do something about these. We can't keep having residents live in units like this. They're substandard living conditions and they need to be rehabilitated. So there's, every municipality has, some municipalities have zero, some are very small. But what that number is something just to address over the course of the round. There's a lot of county programs that assist with grant funding and opportunities for things like that that we are definitely familiar with and will help administer that program.
Okay. Any questions? Go ahead, Candace.
How long before round 5 comes?
2035. And that's, so this new legislation that came out, the intention was for it to clean up this process. You know, it was previously 10 round years. And then the third round and second rounds, the first and second rounds got melted into one, and then the third round became much longer than 10 years. So it has been very chaotic in the past. The intention with this legislation was to hopefully establish a little bit more order to the chaotic world that has been affordable housing planning over the past 3 to 4 decades. So 2035, this plan is intended to resolve the township's obligations until 2035.
Kind of a two-part question. When you're saying you're trying to get how low the number of units we have to have, did it come up at all about not having any city water or storage systems here?
Yes, definitely, and that is what's called a durational adjustment, and that is an option that municipalities have. In the instance of East Amwell, it was something that we evaluated, and it wasn't really the best path to take, honestly.
And on the senior housing, that's all well water too, but with all those units there, I was reading it said it shouldn't have any effect on the surrounding neighborhood as far as loss of water. But how is that gonna work like in severe droughts, which do happen occasionally around here?
Yeah, no, that's
So then-
a legitimate planning challenge that is something that to keep an eye on in the future. This is something that municipalities like East Amwell struggle with because you don't have the infrastructure to support the number of units that these developments provide. So that's a legitimate concern.
Questions? Everyone read all 100 and how many pages?
Yeah, I hope the appendix didn't bore you to death.
No, it actually, I read it a few times, coming at it kind of, almost from, yeah, it was very helpful, but it took a few readings. Anyone else? No? Other questions? No? Okay. Open it to the public. May I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Candace,
Second.
without objection, we are open to public for comments, questions on our affordable housing plan. Come on up.
I just have Frida Rao, East Amwell resident. I just have a question about, I went to a wonderful presentation at the Grange a few months ago about a guy who set up a nonprofit, and they realized that the people, veterans of the war that are both mentally you know, a PTSD and physically maimed and stuff, where they've determined that they actually benefit greatly by being out in an agricultural area. And one of the people was even thinking of, one of the women that's involved in it is thinking of opening a home for women. But there are circumstances in this township where there are people with houses and space to utilize that. Would it be possible for those kind of people to help us qualify for our numbers if that should happen?
Yeah, and this is something, there's a lot of programs like this that are currently developing, and I think it's a great thing to look into.
Okay, because I know a few instances I might look into, see if they're interested.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd like to get more information.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, without objection, we are closed to the public. So if no one has any questions, then our next step would be to make a motion to adopt this. And we have a resolution in front of us. Do I have a resolution already written? Okay. So we actually have a resolution to adopt the 2025 fourth round housing element and fair share plan. May I have a motion to adopt this plan? Ananachi, second, Kohat. Ms. Renola, will you please take the roll?
Sure. Mr. Kenanachi.
Yes.
Ms. Deadweiler.
Yes.
Mr. DiPiero.
Yes.
Mr. Kohut.
Come on, yes.
Mr. Lathan.
Yes.
Ms. McGovern.
Yes.
Mr. Nardi.
Yes.
Ms. Wiggum.
Yes.
Mr. Kadri.
No. I just, I like the document itself, but this particular 20 acres, I don't think is very well suited for 126 units.
Do the alternates vote or no?
No. So I think the motion's adopted, right? Okay. So with that, we have adopted our 2025 fourth round housing element and fair share plan. I think it goes now to the township committee for additional work.
Endorsement.
Yeah, they will adopt a resolution endorsing the plan, and then when's it getting filed? In 48 hours from today, right?
So do they, when do they,
So what has to happen is you, who's signing off on this one? Katie and Emily?
okay, so we can do that tonight,
You
yeah.
can do that tonight. It goes to Tara McDonald, I'm sorry.
San Angelo.
Angelo, I know a Tara McDonald, San Angelo, and she's gonna file this with the court.
Okay.
And then the township committee has to adopt a resolution
Okay.
endorsing the plan.
Okay, and then they have to do the enabling ordinances later?
Yeah, they can have drafts. I don't know where you are with that process, but
Yeah.
not yet.
No, okay. So, that we're done. Okay, next up on the agenda. So I just want to note for the record that Jim Kyle is not here yet. He is in Mantua helping them adopt their fair share housing plan. So we will proceed with the Snydertown application, and then we will see where we are on, from there. I think we may need him for the others. He did do a report for both. What's that? Okay, so going through the applications, so the next application we had was, just for the record, Joseph and Teresa Genova that we heard last month, that has been withdrawn. So that one is done. The next one up we have is Parsons Estate of Irma Parsons, East Amwell, tax map block 40, lot 23, the Sauerland Mountain Region, 50 Snydertown Road. The applicant seeks a minor subdivision, lot line adjustment, and then for the record, there is a variance with that.
Correct. Good evening, everybody. My name is Rich Mongelli. I'm the attorney for the estate of Irma Parsons. As the chair has indicated, this is an application technically captioned as a minor subdivision. We're simply moving a lot line between Irma Parsons' house and Richie Parsons' house, 21 feet, give or take. We call it a boundary line adjustment, but the ordinance doesn't allow for.
Let me just interrupt because I have to do this. There is a jurisdiction to proceed. I've reviewed the notices, everything's in order. Okay.
And did you want to
Thanks,
swear in?
counsel.
And before you actually have any testimony, you need to swear in whatever witnesses you're using.
Sorry, I'll get better about remembering that.
That's okay.
The subject property is 46 and 50 Snydertown Road. It's block 40, lot 23, and lot 2301. Richie Parsons is to my left. Rich is the owner of 2301, 50 Snydertown Road.
Correct.
And lot 2301. And so he's the next door neighbor and the executor of the estate that the house
So-
he's the owner of.
Can I have him speak at all?
Oh, he's going to absolutely testify.
All right, then I'm going to raise your right hand. Do you testify that and you know what, I'll swear at least Robin, right? Swear that the testimony that you're about to give this board is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
So I know the board's busy, so I'm going to give a quick overview. In 1985, this board approved a minor subdivision of Irma's parcel at 46 Snydertown. She had just under 12 acres and subdivided it to create lot 2301, which had just over 3 acres. Rich bought that lot from her and built his home here in the township in 1985. Irma has since passed, and we're in the process of selling her home. It's under contract to a new buyer, a lovely couple. We received our buyer's survey, and we were surprised to learn that Richie's lot at 2301, his driveway and his shed showed up over on Irma's parcel, which was news to us after 40 years. For 40 years, we had no idea this encroachment existed, so we're here tonight to try and clean that up. We're not proposing any construction, any development, any improvements. This is kind of a lawyer's thing. We're moving a line. Nothing is going to change. But Jim Kyle, who's not here to defend his report, and Jim's an outstanding planner, tells us we need 7 variances for this application. Kind of, sort of. Us lawyers over many years have disputed whether something that existed 40 years ago requires variance, but we think the application will support it. These are all pre-existing non-conforming uses. This subdivision was done 40 years ago, before we were the Sourland District, and it was a conforming subdivision at that time. So we have issues of minimum lot area for both lots. They conformed in 85. They don't conform under the current conditions. Minimum lot width for both lots conformed then, not today. Minimum side yard setbacks for both lots. The 7th variance, Richie's lot has maximum lot coverage variance required. The good news is this subdivision will minimize that rather than exacerbate it. But again, these are all pre-existing conditions. Nothing gets impacted by this application. We're requesting permission to adjust the lot line that divides the 2 properties, and we're essentially moving the lot line that divides them 21.3 feet to the east. That's the entire substance of our application. The good result of this will be Richie's shed and his driveway will be fully incorporated into his lot. We won't have the encroachment. So I'm going to call my first witness, who's been sworn, my first and only witness.
Okay.
You ready? You've been sworn, you know you're under oath? Everything you have to say is true? All right. Richie, where do you live?
50 Snydertown Road,
Since when?
since 1985,
And when did you build your home?
1985.
And you bought your home from Mom in 85, right?
Yep, and Dad.
Well, he was on the deed.
He
All
was,
right,
yeah.
okay. And she resided next to you at 46 Snydertown?
Yes, she did,
And Mom's lot was 12.65 acres approximately?
approximately.
And she divided approximately 3.2 acres and sold that to you, is that right?
Yes,
With Dad?
yes.
Okay. And can you tell the board what improvements, if any, you're proposing on your lot? No, I'm sorry. What improvements do you currently have on your lot?
I built the house back in 85. I put a lawnmower shed on it with a lean-to and my driveway.
And you
And a
have,
septic.
Good.
Well,
and what improvements currently exist on Mom's lot?
just the existing buildings and everything that's been there since God knows when. Is the house, the septic, and the well.
And she has a shed as well, right?
Yeah, he's got a barn in the back.
Okay, good. And your gravel driveway and shed currently go over that line, isn't that right?
Yeah, partially went over, yes.
And how did you come to learn that after 40 years?
Upon putting the house on the market, we found a buyer that wanted to buy the house and wanted to make sure that the line was correct. And they came out with their surveyor and it was off. The survey was off from 85.
And are you proposing any changes to the existing improvements on your lot or mom's lot?
No,
And you're asking the board to allow you to move the lot line that divides your property?
correct.
Okay. And why do you want to do this?
To make it conform to the 85 zoning it had. Now it'll be 50 feet away from the house where it belongs.
And to your knowledge, are single-family homes allowed in your zone?
Yes.
That's all I have of this witness.
That's it.
Does the board have any questions?
Has everyone had a chance to look at Jim's memo? I think he laid it out fairly well. And, his comments to me was this is a fairly simple application. One of the things that he said to me, just so you know, is that we have, this is a grandfather lot, and if it was, there's no house on it, there's rules, and if there's a house on it, there's rules, but we're in this and so because we're in this in-between place, this is why we need the variances. He suggested that we make sure that we maintain their ability. He has it right in his memo here. I'm sure you've seen it, Sharon.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, the grandfather clause provides that notwithstanding a pre-existing non-conforming condition, additions or improvements are allowed based on prior rules. And so we would ask the board if you consider approving this application to make that a condition of your
Yeah,
approval.
and he suggests that as well.
I agree.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out.
that basically that the board would adopt a finding of fact, noting that these lots would be subject to the grandfather provisions. In other words, if there's some addition in the future that somebody wants to make to the property, they would still be able to fall within that section, which is 92-89.K for either structure. So in other words, both lots would be grandfathered.
So with that, I just wanted to make sure we got all of that out there. Any questions, any concerns?
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
I don't say, Jim, you're here, but your mom lives next door? Is that?
She is since deceased, and Richie is the neighbor at 2301, and he's the executor of the estate of his mom, Irma
Okay,
Parsons.
so basically this whole property is, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any questions?
And the buyers are in agreement, I assume, with the.
They are aware, in fact, their lawyer keeps pestering me, Rich, when are you gonna get this done? I said, as soon as we get it done. But they've been very patient, so we're hopeful they'll be good neighbors.
And one of the reasons for the variance that was noted in the planning report was that straightening out this line would actually be a better planning design for the lot, which is 2301, right?
Exactly right. So we talk about 7 variances. And so when you look at them, we need minimum lot area for both lots because they both don't conform to the Sauerland requirements. But we reduce Irma's lot, so her nonconformity increases a touch, 0.147 acres against a 9-acre lot. But Richie's lot increases by 0.147 acres on a 3-acre lot, so they get offset.
Yeah.
The minimum lot width on Irma's lot reduces, but Richie's increases, so they're a wash. And then the same thing on the side yard. We eliminate the encroachment on Rich's lot to the extent that Irma's lot reduces, Richie's increases, so they offset. And the last variance is for maximum lot coverage, and that really just deals with Rich's lot. Because his lot increases, his maximum lot coverage is reduced. So the variance, if granted, actually mitigates any of the non-conforming conditions. So.
And also the board has to find that there's no negative impact as a result of granting the variances.
Absolutely, and so I think it's fair to say that these are both permitted uses. And if every one of us stood tonight in the middle of Snydertown Road and looked at these houses, no one would have any idea that this board approved this, if you do. So it's a paper move, and so it's hard to argue, given the offset on the variances. One lot improves, one lot gets reduced a little bit, there's no negative impact. It's hard to argue. It's not something we're gonna notice. Anyone, no one's, Richie has lived for 40 years as if his property existed as we're proposing it tonight. So nothing changes. So it's hard to discern any potential negative impact.
Anything from you, Mr. O'Brien? Anything we need to be aware of or concerned of? Just even in terms of adjusting maps or?
Yes, I have a May 15th letter that they'll need to revise the plan to show that information on there. The lot widths need to be dimensioned. Ordinance requires us to go to the county planning board, has that been?
We have submitted.
You have submitted
Have
that?
no interest because it's adjusted.
Okay, and then the map will have to be updated, basically with the map filing law, to
Well,
set the
what-
correct monuments, et cetera, which I've laid out in that,
Yeah.
that report.
We
Meets
have
and
no
bounds,
objection.
Stipulate to the,
Yeah.
to doing
Of
these?
course.
yeah, meets and bounds provided, so,
We have all that ready for you.
nothing major.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, any questions from the board, other board members before I open to the public? May I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
Without objection, we are open to the public for questions of this witness who lives at 50 Snydertown Road about a lot line adjustment with variances. Seeing no one from the public, going once, twice, 3 times, without objection, we are closed to the public. Okay.
Okay, and on this one, we don't have alternates voting.
We do not have alternates
So,
voting.
just so you know.
Yep, so, I think I would like to have a motion, but I would like to make sure that we incorporate the recommendations of Jim Kyle. So how do I do that best?
No, they just move for approval with the conditions listed in the engineer's report and the recommendations of the planner's report.
Okay.
And then there's always gonna be, the stock conditions to like make sure your taxes are paid, professional fees are done, all that kind of stuff. So,
Okay.
well, that'll be in there.
Okay. So may I have a motion to approve this application with the recommendations and conditions from from the planner's report?
And the engineer's report.
And the engineer's report, thank you.
A second.
You second? Katie, can you please take the votes?
Mr. Caninacci?
Yes.
Ms. Deadweiler?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero? Mr. Kadri?
Yes.
Mr. Kohat?
Yes.
Mr. Lathan?
Yes.
Mr. McGuffin?
Yes.
Mr. Nardi?
Yes.
And Ms. Wiggum?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so, you have a little timing issue here now. So we are waiting for Mr. Kyle. I am going to call him and see where he is. So the board will adjourn for 10 minutes and then we will come back. Okay?
See you next month.
How did we get those other? Should try some of these here. There's it's this one right here. This so properties.
So click on the ... button here.
Next to the rightmost button. Yeah, and then properties, yeah, that one.
Verbatim
And then-
recording of something, like on something now, even though it's
Probably
not on that?
Yes.
Voice.
All right, good.
We're back in business?
We have definitely that one's
Even if we
recording.
don't have
Microphone, so you click the
Yeah.
device.
Yes.
So
I
to
agree.
this,
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
okay, and then go to microphone USB. Click that one, and then OK. Okay, and then this is the same thing on this. Properties, yeah. So that one looks different, right? I don't know why that's different. Let's see. Try default here. Really? No. That one worked. See on the rightmost. So we have that one on, right? So actually
Make sure all
do a start.
USBs
So
are in.
go back to the starting thing. Let's try to start it and we'll see if it can be heard now. Because maybe it's just that one has to get done. Meeting will start shortly. So how do you tell it to go ahead and start?
I think we're
Yeah.
on everything right now. Are you on there?
I'm on my phone going to the website, but I don't see anything. It's just. Spin. All right, now we're on. Let's see for beforehand.
Is it on now, Al? It might be the school.
I got the school.
It might be on just now.
This is the key one that you have to do each time to go through this piece of it in there. Because if this doesn't happen, it doesn't go out.
Okay.
All right, no, now it's on.
It's on. Yeah, that's what it
So I'm
is.
going backward at the pledge, so I don't know what the heck Jenna.
You have it back to the pledge?
I have the Pledge of Allegiance now.
Oh. And if you go forward, can you hear?
I'll go forward.
Okay, well you got it now at least. Okay.
Yeah, because here's.
And is the live stream working?
So maybe that's. No, I'm not sure.
You want to see my phone?
Hurry.
Yeah, just kidding. I suck with looks like it's on now. I don't know. I hate using my phone. I never use my phone to look at stuff. I always use my laptop. So I'm old.
See, I'm looking to see if I can find it. Let's see.
Should be all the way on the bottom. Scroll. Nope. Oh, here we go. Agenda live stream. Click.
Any luck?
Yeah, it's on now.
It's on? Okay.
Is it? I don't know. How did you find it?
There was like a fast forward button on mine, but I don't see anything there.
Oh, this is it.
Is it now? Okay, that's weird. All right, whatever. We're good. Fine. Take two.
Ow. This is it.
All right, whatever. We're good. Fine. Take two.
You mind if I stay?
You can stay right there.
Okay. Didn't know you were gonna.
What do you need, Emily?
We're ready to go, right?
Okay. And it looks like it worked the whole time.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah.
No false alarm? Okay. So the East Amwell Planning Board meeting is back in session, and here's what we're gonna do, agenda-wise. We are going to move any updates we have from the mayor, Mr. Nardi, to get to now, so that they can, because they will then be leaving us, and then we will take up Jersey Power Sports. Mr. Mayor.
Sure. So, as folks will recall, we had interested members of the public come to this body and request the ability to have cottage industry, baking and the like. By way of update, after the planning board came up with a proposal, was sent to the township committee, and actually we'll be sending it to the township committee. And so our next stop will be to consider introduction of that and move that forward. So appreciate the work of this board in working that up. I know there were a lot of issues from boards of health concern to understanding how the state scheme works and dealing with our board of health and all of that. So that's next up for the cottage industry.
Yes, and we have from Jim a draft of the actual ordinance.
Okay.
There's one change we have to make from you, from the definition, and I need to circle back with the Board of Health, but I will have that, I hope to have that too, so that can be introduced at your next meeting.
Okay. Well, we can certainly take it up. Thanks for your work. Also, by way of update, dark skies ordinance for light trespass for greenhouses. That issue I know we reviewed with the planning board. The planning board's indicated how important it is to make sure that we don't have light coming out of greenhouses that would be a problem for the environmental characteristics of our town. Also, an annoyance to neighbors. A number of folks have come to us complaining about light going from one property to another. So a whole host of reasons why that was a significant thing. We did check with our farming community, and we're advised that our farmers are not using lit greenhouses for the crops that they're farming. So there won't be any deleterious effect to them. So at the last meeting, we introduced it, and at the last meeting approved that. So that's progress on dark skies, and appreciate the thoughts of this body. And the Saraland Conservancy and other groups came and supported it as well. And a third thing just to mention, it's not specifically land use related, but it is a matter of some relevance to this board, and that is traffic calming. As you know, some residents have been complaining for some time about Ringo's Village, all the speeding that happens in the downtown there, and I know that the planning board is concerned about quality of life issues as it carries out its work. The other place we got two folks who complained recently, and I think others have voiced it as well. Speeding on Wurtsville Road. So that's also an issue. So we've been working with the state and the county to collect data on traffic. That includes both the number of vehicles that are passing and the speed that the vehicles are going in. So we're in the process of getting back to those other governmental entities and making the case that we need some better protections for our residents. So, you know, consistent with the goal of the planning board to make sure we've got, you know, good quality of life in our Ringo's Village and also out, you know, Wurtsville Road in our agricultural areas. That's an ongoing process, so worthwhile for this body to know about that. And RVAC, the Ringo's Village Advisory Committee, has been, you know, very active in looking at the data. They're analyzing the data that we got from the county after they put out sensors, and providing, you know, us with their thoughts and recommendations on where to go. So those are a couple things that are going on.
Thank you.
And Chairwoman.
Thank you, appreciate it. Anything that, Mr. Padre, that you wanted to update us on? Oftentimes you have FOSPA updates.
You know, both the Farmland and Open Space and the Ag Advisory Committee have canceled this month's meeting because we're still waiting on the state to get our farm land back to us.
Amazing how we get these really tight deadlines from the state.
Wow. Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, had to say it.
We get it that way, they don't give it that way.
Yeah, sorry, had to say it.
I'd like to reverse those too, but,
Yeah.
well, thanks for staying on top of that. I hope they get back to us quickly.
Yeah.
And then just one other thing from me and from the chair and from our secretary is, you may have noticed we've starting with this month and going forward, she will be putting the application material on the public website in advance, so anyone from the public can see the application material. It's public knowledge. We're trying to get that out, and you are working on the communication to the board and sort of getting all those links back. So that there's one link or two links, so that's a work in progress. But you will see some changes, but please reach out if things are moving a little bit, but I think they're moving in the right direction. Is there anything else you wanted to say? No. Yeah, so that's okay. I think we're good with updates. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Al.
You're welcome.
And we are now on to the next hearing. Hi, I'm just gonna put the phone down now.
Just as a housekeeping item, we're still under jurisdiction. The application was last noticed for the April 15th meeting, and we've been carrying it since then, so
Yep.
we're still good.
And in terms of people who've heard, so Mr. Catenacci was not here, and he has listened. You've listened to everything, and if you recall, we had a gap in the recording, or in the video. We sent that out. We had it transcribed by a court transcriber, so we had an official good transcription, if you will, for that gap for people who needed to get up to speed. And I think, Lance, you were in the same. Yep, and also Beth did the same. So. What's that? Yeah, is there anything they need to sign for that?
She signed a certification that they've.
I'll get it to them, yeah.
Transcripts and all that.
We'll take care of
All right,
that.
so, we've got 7 people eligible to vote tonight, if they're voting tonight, if we get through everything.
Yeah. So, and Mr. Kyle is on his way. He cannot participate because we don't do virtual meetings, but he is listening so that when he walks in, he will have heard everything we've said. He is driving from Mantua right now. And with that, I will leave it with you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board, and before I start, thank you all for being so diligent, taking the time to listen to the tapes and recordings and for transcribing it so that we can be here tonight. My name is Kara Kaczynski. I'm with the law firm of McNally, Yaros, Kaczynski, and Lime, and I'm here tonight representing Jersey Power Sports, LLC. The property that's before you is 1030 Route 202, and it's known as Block 16, Lot 19.01. And my client is under contract to purchase this property. You might recall that we were here previously. We made a presentation to you, and it's been a little while since we've been back, but we're glad we're here. It's taken about 7 months since the application was deemed complete, but we are ready to complete our presentation tonight and hopefully bring this matter to a close and get a vote from the board. To recap quickly, the property is located within your highway office district, and it is proposed to be utilized primarily for the sale of agricultural vehicles and other ancillary vehicles. The applicant currently operates this same business in the borough of Flemington on Rayville Avenue, and they're looking to relocate to a newly constructed and improved location that will also incorporate other site improvements for the township, including a septic system and water connections. Section 92-97 of your ordinances specifically permits what are known as feed grain, farm machinery, and farm supplies, and other businesses that support agriculture. And you previously heard testimony from the applicant's planner that we believe that this proposed use falls within that permitted use because, as the applicant testified, the majority of the vehicles that are sold at this property are farm and agriculture-related equipment. But we've applied for a use variance, and we are continuing to present what we believe is sufficient evidence to this board in order for you to grant that use variance. We also applied for some additional variances. And since our last meeting, when we went back to address some of your comments and plan changes, we took a very close look at what those variances were. And we did our very best to decrease the nonconformities with your current ordinance, and here's what we did. You may recall the maximum permitted height within this zone is 20 feet. We originally proposed 35 feet. We've now gone back, we've reduced it to 32. So you're going to hear some testimony tonight with regard to the additional exhibit that was provided by our client to show you exactly why we need that increased height, but we did do our best and we were able to reduce it 3 feet. We need a variance from the minimum number of parking spaces. 78 is required based upon your ordinance, and we proposed 23. You heard testimony previously that based upon the applicant's experience with the operations and their need at this particular site, that we do believe the 23 proposed spaces are sufficient. We also need a variance from the minimum parking space size requirements. 10 by 20 is required. We proposed 9 by 20. We also required a variance from the maximum facade signage size of your ordinance. We're proposing 1 facade sign, and your maximum square footage permitted is 32 square feet. Previously, we were proposing a 96 square foot sign, and you're shaking your head, and you're right. It was a fairly large sign. We went back, we heard you, and we have now reduced that to 52 square feet. So the facade sign, which is now an oval, basically mirrors the proposed freestanding sign, which I will say is within the parameters of size permitted by your ordinance. What we also did was we pushed that freestanding sign back from the front highway. So now we comply with the setbacks for that sign, so we've reduced, eliminated, I should say, that variance entirely. We do, however, need a front yard setback variance because we do have the basin and some landscaping still within the front. But that signage structure, which I submit to the board is really what your ordinance is geared towards, does comply with the setback requirements. So, as I said, we left the last hearing with some work to do. Specifically, we had some plan revisions. You wanted to see a couple other things on the plans. And you had some questions regarding the exact types of vehicles that are going to be sold by the applicant at this property. So we've submitted revised engineering drawings. There's one page labeled C4 that you have in front of you. And we also submitted revised architectural plans along with some photographs and descriptions of the various types of vehicles and some other information that the applicant is here to provide some additional testimony on and answer any of your questions. Tonight, I don't want to belabor the matter. You've been dealing with this for quite some time, but we do want to make sure that not only do we explain what's been provided, but that we answer whatever questions you may have. And I do have the applicant, our engineer, architect, and planner here to do just that.
And we'll submit that everybody's still under oath from the
Correct.
first meeting? Okay.
Correct, absolutely. So unless you have any questions, I do have the applicant here, and we could start off with his testimony.
Could I ask just a quick clarifying question? What new documents specifically have we received since the last time you were here?
So you received an engineering drawing, which is labeled C4. And there's actually a copy of that right here. This is what it looks like.
Is that gonna be an exhibit?
If you
We
wanna
probably
mark
should,
it,
because
yeah,
we,
that's fine.
I had the last one as A7, so I think we're up to A8.
A8. Now, if we're going to start with my client's testimony.
We won't be doing A8 yet, okay.
Correct,
Well,
correct. And
okay.
A8 will be
The
the
next.
other document that was submitted, which was a submission of 5 sheets, 4 written sheets and 1 pictorial sheet at the end that the applicant put together, basically describing the vehicles, what they're used for. He also has a little bit of testimony or description of the test area, along with the business model and the stacking.
Is that the dated March 21st? That's the letter, and then it has?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Correct. And then the last was the revised architectural drawings. And those, the last revision date of those was February 7, 2025. And that consists of revised elevations, A4 and A3.
Will you have your professionals address those?
Yes.
In turn?
Absolutely.
Since it's
Yep,
been a
I just
while.
wanted to answer
Yeah.
Mr. Cohen's question. But that's the entirety of what's been submitted
Okay.
since the last time we were here.
Just want to make sure we had it all.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Bordis, as counsel indicated, you are still under oath. And at the end of the last meeting, the board had questions concerning what types of vehicles you will be selling at the property, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and did you prepare a submission to the board outlining and showing pictures of these vehicles?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so that I'd like to mark as Exhibit A, the 5 sheets, or Exhibit A8, I should say, those 5 sheets.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about it, right? We're gonna go through it.
Yeah, so we could do whatever the board would like. We could go through each sheet, he could describe them, we can answer questions. It's really up to you. I don't wanna,
Yeah, I don't know if everybody has copies in front of them, maybe they do.
I know they do have, this they have copies of. I don't think we have copies. I can't swear that we have copies of all of the other drawings. That's why
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that your
Okay.
professionals went through this. I do know.
So for the record, why don't you just say what you submitted, you know, so
Absolutely.
that.
Okay, so did you prepare what's been marked as Exhibit A8?
Yes.
Okay, and so can you just go through exactly what that exhibit shows? The different types of vehicles you're selling at the property and just what's described there?
Yep. Yeah, so we go through basically each sector of what we sell at my business. It basically gives you a description or a definition of each sector, whether it be ATVs or utility task vehicles, UTVs. Then it goes through the go-karts that we sell, and then again goes through our test rides, our business model, and then how our storage is maintained.
So let's start with the vehicles. Why don't you explain what an ATV is?
So an ATV is an all-terrain vehicle. It's used in many cases on farms, largely in the equestrian industry, mainly for like pulling rings, moving hay, people plow their driveways with them, all that kind of like work stuff. That's why a utility ATV is primarily what we sell, and they have racks on them. That way they can carry things, and they also can tow with them. And they have four-wheel drive because often on farms you have a lot of mud and a lot of areas you can get stuck in. So that would be ATVs.
UTVs.
UTVs they're for a little bit different demographics. Sometimes an older population will use them just because they're easier to get in and out of. Also, if you have workers on the farm or anything, it can transport more than one person, unlike an ATV. They also have dump beds on them, similar to a pickup truck style bed. So it's also used for towing, hauling. You can plow with them. Four-wheel drive again, just because there are so many places you can get stuck. But I would say that UTVs are definitely a key necessity to any farm or large property.
Okay, and there's a go-kart description in there. Can you explain that to the board?
Yep. So the go-karts are primarily a youth-driven vehicle. People primarily use them if they have maybe a couple acres or more. But it's primarily for kids to, tool around on the property and whatnot. Or I've even had some where some people want to take their garbage can down to the end of the driveway that's really long. And even sometimes like kids want to play with their dad or anything around the yard when they're cleaning up the yard, doing yard work. They'll help their dads out with throwing stuff in the bed, that kind of stuff.
So it's more a recreational vehicle than the other two?
Correct. Yep.
So those three are the majority of the types of vehicles that you currently sell and that you'll be selling at the property?
That's correct. Yeah, that encompasses pretty much.
Okay, is there anything else? I know we've had some testimony and some concerns with regard to motorcycles. You do sell those at the property as well, correct?
We do.
Okay. Can you explain for the board, you testified previously that you have a motor vehicle license to sell certain vehicles, such as the motorcycles, correct?
That is correct.
And just explain why you have and need to have that motor vehicle license.
So that's primarily for registration and insurance purposes, typically having to do with when someone finances a vehicle. For us to get paid for that machine, they require us to register and insure the vehicle in certain cases, which we would not be able to do without a license.
Okay, so it would significantly hamper your business if you didn't have that motor vehicle license.
That's correct.
And can you just explain and refresh the board's memory why you also sell motorcycles at the property as well, even though that's not the majority of your business?
Yep. It's primarily because any brand has their own requirements as to what a dealer has to sell. I can't just take a brand on into my business and just sell one of their products. If they have, majority of one type of product and then they have one off thing that is a motorcycle, let's say, I can't say no or I don't get the brand at all. So it's something that just has to happen essentially.
Okay, but again, your testimony stands that the majority of the vehicles that you would be selling currently and at this property is the three that are outlined in there.
Correct, that's our main focus.
One of the other things that we went back and did after the last meeting was depicted on the drawings where the test rides were going to take place. And Ms. Dragan, we can mark this then as A9 so we can just kind of show exactly where that's going to take place.
Okay, that is, just what's the name of that one?
Yes, so this is C4, prepared by Golden Bound Bale Engineering. The plan is C4, the original date is December 27, 2023, and last revised February 1st, 2025.
Thank you.
So could you just point out to the board where the test ring is located?
This will be in towards the rear of the property on the side of the building. We've made a little ring right there because the customers really don't need a whole lot of space to do test rides.
Okay, and that's the only place that these test rides would take place?
That is the only place, yes.
They don't have free reign throughout the whole property?
Yeah, correct.
They don't go out onto the street, they don't go onto other people's property, they just stay right here?
Correct.
Okay, can you just explain how the test rides work?
Essentially, if someone wants to test the machine, and really they're not allowed to test motorcycles or high-risk vehicles for our insurance and their safety. But anytime someone does operate one of our vehicles, they're required to have proper safety gear. They need to have a proper license, driver's license. And then we do take copies of all that to keep it on file as well. But it's a very short test ride, maybe a minute or two, just to kind of drive around and get the feel, the functionality, the comfort, that kind of thing.
And the location of this test drive area, will that interfere with any of the circulation around the property, the use of the service bays, anything like that?
It will not, because of one, how short the duration of the test drive is, and we really only do maybe 1 or 2 a month, if that.
1 or 2 a month of test drives?
Yeah, very minimal.
Your current location, which is something else that our engineer will testify to, is also shown, or the size of the existing lot where you currently operate from is also shown on the drawings, correct?
Yes.
And it's significantly smaller than the subject property.
That's correct.
And you did test drives there in a same way?
Yes.
ever have any problem there maneuvering around or with any test drives in that small area?
No.
Okay, you heard in my opening that we decreased the height of the building, the proposed building from 35 to 32?
Yes.
One of the things that we wanted to show the board was why we needed that increased height, because the maximum height is 20 feet. In your exhibit, do you have some information with regard to how the internal stacking is done on the property?
Yeah.
Okay, so just explain that for the board.
So, do you have a copy of this?
We do.
Okay.
Yes, the very last one, yep.
Yeah, so a lot of our machines come in these stackable crates to really take advantage of height versus it being all over the place. So we really need the height to be able to stack properly and give it a clean look and keep everything organized.
And if you couldn't stack it that high, you would need more square footage of the building itself, correct?
Correct.
Which would need more impervious coverage and be a whole separate issue.
Correct.
Can you reduce that racking system to any lower than a 32-foot ceiling height?
No, just due to the amount that we stack and the way they have to be stacked along with our forklift, we really cut it down to as low as we can get it, just based on the sizing of the machines and their crates.
Okay, and that was your goal, right, to get it to as low as you possibly could?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a couple more questions for you. Signage, we are proposing 2 signs, correct?
Yes.
One over the main entrance and one freestanding sign.
Correct.
And that sign over the main entrance and the freestanding sign are proposed to be externally illuminated,
Yes.
not internally.
Correct.
And
You
then
say
one.
are both externally?
Correct. And we will show them in more detail on the drawings. And one last thing, a very large concern that we've done a lot of discussions about of the board has been motorcycles. So I just want to place on the record, do you currently at your existing location, do you promote, advertise, conduct any sort of motorcycle gatherings or groups or host any sort of meetings at your current location?
No, I've never.
Do you plan on doing that at your proposed location?
Never.
And would you be willing, should the board see fit, to impose as a condition of any approval that you will not, at any point in time in the future, do anything like that?
Absolutely.
I don't have any other questions, Madam Chair. You guys have any questions?
I have a question. I was not here when you talked about one of the reasons why you wish to move out of Flemington and into East Amwell. And one of the reasons you said is that your property had been subjected many times to theft. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
As a fair summary of your statement.
Correct.
Can you tell me what was stolen? What were they after?
They will come after really anything with wheels on it at this point, and really like the one time they came for a dirt bike, and then another time they came for UTVs.
When you say they, do you have any idea who you're
I don't know. I wish I
And
knew.
I assume you have some sort of surveillance equipment on the property.
We do, but
Are we dealing with teenagers? Are we dealing with, what did your surveillance show?
the only thing that I know of is that there were multiple people involved with it, but past that, the surveillance really wasn't good enough to pick up on age, who they were, where they came from, or anything like that. So unfortunately, I can't give you much
And
information.
how many occasions?
I'm sorry?
How many occasions?
Oh, twice now.
Twice. In how many years?
In close to 3 years.
And I assume this was reported to the Flemington Police?
Correct.
Who investigated this?
They did.
And results?
No results, unfortunately. Yeah, we were kind of just, they said, we're not sure. They couldn't gather enough off of the footage. And that's one thing that I do want to do in the new building is have much better surveillance systems. But when I started the business, I didn't have enough money necessarily to put those kind of cameras in, so I just did the best I could with what I had.
So did they actually steal vehicles? Did they steal equipment? What did they actually get?
So the first time they did steal a dirt bike out of our showroom, and then the second time they attempted to break into our door, which we had then reinforced. So they were not able to get into it. They then decided to take one of our trailers, and they took that. Then they actually dropped the trailer in the neighboring power sports dealer in Flemington, and then proceeded to take, I think it was 4 or 5 of their one ATV, and then I think it was 3 or 4 of their UTVs.
So they were after these all-terrain vehicles and...
Yes.
Now, you have talked a great deal about the use of these vehicles for farming.
Yes.
Basically, these are recreational vehicles, are they not, sir?
They can be, but majority of their uses and majority of my customers are using them for utility purposes.
Dirt bikes?
Those are a recreational vehicle.
I'm looking at the pictures of the ATV that you've given to us.
Mm-hmm.
Question, how are they powered?
They can be gasoline or electric. Electric, there's really only a couple brands out there right now. That's still on its way.
So the majority of them are gas?
For ATVs, yes.
And I assume the same is true of UTVs?
UTVs, actually, a lot more electric options are available.
And the other thing that was pointed out last time is, it seems that how many of these vehicles can be stored in the structure, which you call different things, and some people have referred to as warehouses, as a warehouse. How many of these vehicles can be stored in this structure?
I haven't done an exact calculation, but my estimate would be somewhere around the 70 to 100 stacked properly.
And how many can you store in Flemington at the present time?
Flemington, I cannot store any crate machines in these crates.
All right. So this is a dramatic change from what's going on in Flemington in terms of warehousing. That's my word. Warehousing of 70 to 80 of these ATVs.
So yeah, we do have a separate storage location where I store those currently, which is one of the reasons we want to have our own storage.
Where is that?
That is in Lambertville.
And how big, and where in Lambertville, and how big a location?
That is approximately a 4,500 square foot facility. It has 2 big overhead doors on it. Very similar to the design that we have in the drawing, and that's where we store all of the graded machines.
And why is that? Why, it's not that far.
Yep.
Why is that not suitable?
Because, well, one, I don't really want to cause a problem with the town having all those machines stacked outdoors, and I also have to protect my own inventory so that it doesn't get weathered, because I have to basically forecast my inventory for the next year, sometimes even 2 years. So if a machine were to sit outside uncovered for 2 years, then it could be severely damaged, it could be sun faded, corroded, anything like that.
Mr. Say, any questions?
Forgive me if I'm repeating a question from one of the
No problem.
previous meetings. I was kind of playing catch up. You mentioned in a meeting before, like the number of dirt bikes that you sell at any given period, and could you just maybe tell us like how many dirt bikes compared to actual UTVs or ATVs that you sell?
It's tough to put a number on it, but comparing like that. But I mean, it's, you know, under 10% of our sales.
Okay, thanks.
How about when you add motorcycles, scooters, street bikes, cruisers, and go-karts?
So go-karts I wouldn't put under the umbrella of a motorcycle per se, but like
No, these are all the pure
Oh, the
recreation.
Okay, yeah, so the go-karts are really a Christmas time kind of thing for the most part. So that will inflate the percentage definitely. When we put in go-karts, I would put it at like a 15 to 20% of my sales. But the motorcycle wise, the scooters, that kind of stuff still is gonna be under 10%.
I have one more question, and I think this was brought up again in a previous meeting. Jersey Power Sports is not affiliated with the Flemington Power Sports.
Not in any way.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I've seen the two parking lots, and they kind of it looks as though they meld together.
Yeah, people, back in the day those two locations were one.
Okay.
And then when I took over the lease, we have no affiliation with them whatsoever.
And you don't even sell Kawasaki's?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Do you have, excuse me, one more, do you have any other locations to sell these vehicles? I mean, or do you anticipate selling all of these vehicles out of the East Amwell location?
All of the vehicles that we've outlined would be our intention to sell out of East Amwell.
And do you sell mostly from online, or do you sell to people walking in and buying?
I would say, I mean, a lot of our sales originate from online, just from people seeing us online. They don't necessarily click a button and hit buy now. So eventually everyone does come into the store. But, you know, it's pretty sporadic when they come.
This has to do with the property itself. I don't mind the business, but this is a community that wants to preserve farmland, and that piece of property, although it's small, has been farmland for a long time. Have you investigated any other properties around?
Yes, I have. I've looked in Flemington and I've looked elsewhere around here, and really there's not enough acreage that is going to allow me to have a suitable size building. And then also our DMV requirements require, I believe it's about 5 acres for it to be suitable. So that's why we're going for here.
I have a question, I actually have a couple questions. Refresh my memory, please. We talked about these bikes, whether they were dirt bikes being street legal or not street legal.
Mm-hmm.
What was the conversation, refresh where we were on that?
So there's the definition of it is basically either a dirt bike and then an enduro motorcycle. An enduro motorcycle it's a kind of a mesh between a street motorcycle and a dirt motorcycle. But it's primarily used for like jumping from a trail system, maybe down the road a little bit to another trail system where people will go like down to the Pine Barrens area, that kind of thing. So for those short distances, they need to be street legal, but that'll just basically, they put turn signals and a headlight on them.
On the dirt bikes.
That's correct, yeah, to make it an enduro, but it's not something that we can modify to do.
US 202 south, then turn left onto US 202 north. At the light, turn left onto US 202 north.
So after our meeting last time, I went and looked at your website, and because I think, as you can tell from our questions, this is probably a big area of inquiry, and you know, I was just trying to get a sense of what what the website said. My background is in marketing, so what your website says is what I believe.
Yes.
Well, maybe not, but anyway, there was actually a page on there, and I don't know if it's there, because I have to say I haven't gone back. This is dated January 22nd. I took screenshots for myself. And it just says, now introducing Segway, make your ATV side-by-side or dirt bike street legal, promotions available here. What was that?
So that is, it's through actually dirtlegal.com. It's an affiliate, and basically, it's all it is an online link that we can get paid through for. So
Okay.
they just click that, and it could be anywhere across the United States. It's not a local thing, and we really don't
It's
do
not
it.
something you're doing?
Right,
Okay.
right.
And then on your Facebook page, you had just a Segway Power Sports open house sales event? Is that a common event? Like, is that a common thing?
About once a year, and that's to promote their utility vehicles.
Okay, got it. And then I drive by there very frequently, so sorry, just because, there's a grocery store and other things. Is there not a big boat out there right now?
Oh,
And whose boat is that?
Oh, so yeah, we have consignment, and we also out of our Lambertville location do have marine sold out of there.
Okay, because that was the other thing.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
no intention of doing that here in East Amwell.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you were definitely shoehorned in a very small space, and then there's a boat, and then a
Yeah.
few months ago, there was something else, and I took a picture of it, and I couldn't find it to ask you about it, but it's like,
Yeah.
what is that? Looked
Yeah,
like
no,
was-
it was to promote our Lambertville location for those sales,
Okay.
but we will not be having any sales of that kind over here.
That would be something you'd be willing to stipulate? that,
Absolutely.
No consignment, that,
Yeah, it's a big boat.
Yep.
I was just like, well, this doesn't fit this narrative here, so needed to ask. Any other questions from? Go ahead.
One question, do you have any idea what percentage of your customers are from East Amwell?
I don't have that calculation offhand, no. I do know we have quite a lot of local customers, whether it be East Amwell or Flemington area, but I couldn't tell you the exact number from here.
Can you give me any approximation as to how many percentage of East Amwell? I'm not interested in the local, I'm interested in
East Amwell,
And if you can't, you can't, I mean, we'll definitely try.
If you can't give me a percentage, that's fine.
yeah, that's a really tough one. I just wouldn't be able to give you an accurate number on that one. My total guess, probably 15–20%.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if this is a question for the witness, for you, Ms. Boyd, or for our attorney.
Ms. Kaczynski.
I'm sorry.
I'm sitting here shaking my head.
Sincere apologies. What would you be willing to stipulate as far as seeing that this is primarily for support of agricultural uses? When I look at the highway ordinance and the letter of the ordinance itself, it talks about the specific thing around farm equipment. I mean, it doesn't even say farm machinery in the version I have here, but it basically, I can read between the lines here, and we see something around feed and grain, farm supply businesses. If we call this farm supply businesses, farm and agricultural uses. Farm is the word here that I'm looking for. And I want, my concern, I'll put it right on the table here, is that if you decide to move to Tahiti in 5 years and sell this to a motorcycle dealership, that this would be grandfathered, that would be a permissible use.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm concerned about, because the highway ordinance does not, this district does not permit that as it is now. And I'm concerned that we open the door for that. So I'm curious what kind of stipulation you would be willing to agree to, and the way we frame something that would allow us to clearly identify this as a farm supply or farm and agricultural uses related business.
I can say that we certainly recognize that it's a concern of the board. We can discuss crafting some sort of condition. I think we had already started submitting some potential conditions to the board with one of my prior submissions. I guess from a practical standpoint, my mindset is kind of if somebody wants a motorcycle, they're gonna find a motorcycle, whether they have to go to a store in East Amwell or a store in Flemington to get it. So, I don't necessarily know if that's going to achieve the no motorcycle interest in East Amwell, as much as maybe you may want to. I certainly think that the agreement to not promote, schedule, or hold any on-site gatherings, I think that's certainly very important and something we would definitely be willing to do. We can talk and see if there's some suggestions as to what we can do, but, again, at the end of the day, I don't know, since it is a very small portion, and, I don't know if that will ultimately get you to where you wanna go, but we certainly will be willing to discuss that.
It's a small portion that you need to keep, for your business?
Correct.
Yeah, this is, I'm going back even to, you were hiring somebody in the first, at that same time, which I know how hard it is to hire people, so, but has a genuine passion for bikes, ATVs, UTVs, and all things mechanical. I'm not hearing farm in that. This is.
UTVs are fun.
UTVs?
We have 4 UTVs that live in town.
Tell me, please.
A UTV like ours are decent Kubotas, but it's just a side-by-side that has a bed on the back. So when we're moving pigtail posts for cattle, we use that to, we've got 400 acres, it's a mile long. So you don't want to be out there in a truck, you want to be out there with something that has less tire pressure and a little bit of a back to it. And so, I mean, that's the UTV
legit.
it's a legit farm vehicle. I have an ATV that I also use for stuff, but it's not as useful as a UTV though is. I'd love when they become electric. I see the electric ones outside in front of Lowe's for like $12,000. But I don't know if we'll stand behind it.
And in fairness, there was also, I was looking at the inventory, there was lawn mowers and snow blowers, so I'm I don't wanna just fixate on that, I just wanna be fair about that, but.
Understood.
Yeah.
I thought that in the last meeting, when we were talking about this, you guys were amenable to basically saying, since it's a big margin of safety from where you say your sales currently are, that the condition could be that more than 50% of what's sold on the property will fall under the aggravated category.
I think that's pretty much what there is now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the testimony has been, is that.
It's less than 10%.
But would that then ameliorate the concern that if the property were sold somewhere down the road, somebody would have a car dealership? Or
That's
something
the problem.
No, but I guess my question is, would that condition convey with the future sale of the property, specifying that it be dedicated to a simple majority of ag-related property?
And there also could be something, and I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here, but a lot of times sitting on that side where administrative is, these issues come up all the time. If there's going to be a new owner, that the board reviews the use to see if it's consistent with what was granted, something, along those lines. I don't want to obviously get too restrictive, but I understand the concern, and it's a understandable one.
And I think 50% is too low. I'd like to see it at least 75%, which is still underneath
I would be fine with that.
what you're saying now.
I did want to, so the previous testimony, there was a lot more emphasis on actual tractors and mowers, and it seemed to be more heavy into the actual more direct farm equipment that I would consider being in that category. And you did mention when you first started the business, it was primarily motorcycles, ATVs, and then you switched during COVID to orient more towards farming. And so the items you have listed here are not tractors, they're not mowers. Have you seen a shift back now? Like, is this a reflection of your business shifting back towards your original
No,
business?
This was primarily to address the concerns from the last meeting and help everyone get a little bit better understanding of what we do there. But again, our primary focus is the agriculture equipment. That's where our business has gone to. It's more recession-proof. It's just all around, better for us.
And also, I think those 3 items, the board was not really sure what they were.
Yeah.
So I think that was part of the reason to, whereas with a mower and something else, that's kind of more obvious, or a motorcycle. It's
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood. So these are items that, in addition to these items, you're gonna have tractors, you're gonna have mowers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
misunderstood.
Yeah.
I thought this was like an exclusive list of what you're gonna carry. I'm like, wait, where's?
No, I think this was like, these were the ones we
Sorry about
really,
that.
we know what a lawnmower is.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
know what
yeah,
these
no.
are.
Correct.
But will you have tractors?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Where are they gonna be stored?
Those are, well, with our storage in the back of the building, we plan to put them in there, and then on display outside.
How many tractors?
We typically have 10 to 15 on hand at any
And
time.
what are the size of the tractor? What are we talking about by tractor? Are we talking about big John Deere farm tractors that sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, or what are we talking about?
No, so we specialize in subcompact tractors, so that would be pretty much anything under 50 horsepower, basically. So it's your typical homeowner or small, like 10-acre property kind of tractor. Similar to like a typical Kubota you'd see at someone's house or anything like that.
So not the kind of farm tractors that we are used to seeing in the Amwell Valley, then?
Yeah, not for the 100-acre tractors, but these are the guys who maybe have their own small field or anything like that. Like we still sell tillers, we sell brush hogs, we sell graders, all the things that anyone that would need an implement for.
You basically don't sell tractors to farmers, you sell tractors to people who use them on their residence.
Oh no, we do. That's why we sell implements.
Farms use smaller tractors too. We use smaller tractors to pull the chickens and to brush hog with a 16-inch brush hog, but we don't use a huge tractor for that.
So is your testimony
farm
that maybe
Where is your farm?
farming has changed over the years?
I
And different equipment is being used?
Time.
I mean, is that what, maybe that should be explained to the board if that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, I really like farming, let's say 50 years ago, there was none of the ATVs and the UTVs, and there wasn't a lot of smaller tractor options out there. It was primarily like your large Ford, Massey Ferguson, John Deere big tractors, that kind of thing. And now, everything's about efficiency, being able to do things quickly, and that's what all these kind of help farmers do. And I don't know one farmer without an ATV or a UTV. It's just kind of the nature of it.
Is that open to the public, for questions of this witness, if that's okay?
Yeah, I just had a couple more,
Go ahead.
couple more follow-ups if that's
Yep,
okay.
yep.
I just wanted to talk about the difference between your current facility and this facility. You rent your space in Flemington, correct?
Correct.
So you're limited based upon what the landlord allows you to do by way of security, by way of improvements, by way of locations and everything like that.
Yeah.
You will have much more flexibility building ground up with where your storage areas will be, what types of security, where things will be located and things like that. You can design around your needs, basically.
Correct.
And that would include addressing any potential issues you may have had previously at your current location.
Correct.
Okay, so you said you would like to put some more surveillance up. You could put up whatever you want here. You can design it to tailor what it is that you think you need.
That is correct.
That's the other question.
Mr. O'Brien, before I open to the public, do you have anything you want to?
No questions. Thank you.
So we'll open to the public for questions of this witness. This is not the time for general comment. It's just questions particularly to his testimony. Okay. May I have a motion to open to the public?
Move to open to the public.
Without objection, we are open to the public for questions to this witness, not general comments. Come on up. Yes, Rita.
Frida Ralph, East Adwell Township. My one question was, had to do with, I forgot now, the testimony of that you did not find any other suitable place.
Frida's turn your head when you talk into the microphone so we can hear?
Oh,
When
it
you
was,
turn your head-
he had testified that he had looked and hadn't found any place other place that was suitable.
What's the question though?
Where he looked. He said he looked in Flemington and other places.
So the question is, where else did you look for properties?
Specifically.
I mean, I had a realtor that we've been working with to try and find a property with commercial zoning of any kind or a good location to have our building at. And we weren't able to really find anything without, going deep into the woods or like we with this type of business, you want to have a highway presence, so.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Anyone else? Questions for this witness? Going once, twice? Okay. Without objection, we are closed to the public. Next up.
Thank you. Okay, next I have our engineer.
And he's been.
He's been sworn in
He's been
before
sworn
and
he has,
qualified.
right. Seen him before.
Okay, Mr. Rupnarain, you are still under oath, and you previously provided this board with a great deal of engineering testimony, correct?
Yes,
Since the last meeting, you revised your engineering plans and submitted a revised sheet to the board, is that correct?
yes,
And that sheet's labeled C4, and that is what we are showing over here.
correct.
Okay, could you describe how the plans were amended?
So we added several things based on comments we heard from the board at the last hearing. And one of the items that we depicted on the plan is there were questions regarding the power line easement along the frontage of the property. And the plan has been amended to show the power.
we, please, maybe,
You can't see
somehow-
Yep.
Wasn't sure if you guys had them in front of you or not.
That is the one.
Is that,
yeah.
can you see it? You can, okay.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So what we did as part of the revision is the plan was revised to show the extent of the power line easement as it traverses the front of the property, and the easement is centered along the utility poles which were located by. Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've amended the plans to include the location of the utility line. In addition to that.
And just show the board where that is again?
So the utility line is depicted as this dash line that's a little bit west of the existing power line, and it runs along the entire front of the property.
And that's the JCP&L easement?
Correct.
Okay. How else were the plans amended?
Secondly, there were questions regarding the sign where we were proposing the freestanding sign. And the freestanding sign used to be adjacent to the site easement, but outside of the site easement along the driveway. That sign was relocated further north on the property, and that sign is now located outside of the easement area in this northerly section of the property, just north of the proposed building. In addition to that,
And how many feet from the highway is it?
the sign is 12.4 feet from the right-of-way line.
Okay.
In addition to that, there were questions regarding the proposed outdoor display area. And what I've done is we've hatched into two areas that we are proposing to use for the outdoor display. And that the hatched area within the parking lot, that's one area. And then secondly, there's going to be an area that's outside of the easement in this hatched area. This is an existing open grassed portion of the property. And that area will also be used as the outdoor display area.
And is that to the right of the drainage basin? If
Yeah.
I'm facing the property?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. And then there were a couple of other changes that were, we were asked to show. This shaded area here that's south of the proposed driveway, this is where the ornamental tractor will be located, the display tractor that we spoke about. And in addition to that, the site plan does require an on-site water tank for fire protection purposes. And that's shown just west of that ornamental tractor. Those tanks are fully underground. There are just a few suction lines and fill indicators that generally extend above grade. And then finally, the last item was the test area for whenever a customer might want to test a piece of equipment they're looking to purchase. And that is this shaded oval area here that we have. And it's located towards the rear of the property, partly under the canopy and within the loading area or where the tractor trailers would have to use in order to back into the loading zone. And those are essentially the changes that were made to the site plan.
Okay, the testimony was that the test drive area would not interfere with the loading areas or any other structures on the property, is that correct?
Correct.
And did we also add a depiction of the existing area where the applicant is operating from?
We did. And this large rectangular area, this is the current property size that the applicant's facility is in Flemington where it's located. That lot is, correct.
Okay, correct, yes. The board had asked for a comparison, and just for clarification purposes, that's the entirety of the property. So that's where he's operating from now and able to do what it is that he's doing, so that's the differential between the two. Is there any new landscaping proposed?
There will be additional landscaping as suggested by the board along the rear of the property to infill some of the open areas between us and the neighbors, but we have not yet fully revised the site plan, but they will be incorporated into future site plans.
And to the extent that the board or the board's professionals deems additional landscaping necessary, we'd be willing to put that on the property.
Certainly.
A couple changes that ultimately we'll need to make. There are 2 facade signs shown on the engineering drawings, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so one of them, the one that is to, I guess, let's say the left portion, that's going to be removed. That's no longer proposed.
Correct.
Okay, so that can be revised as a condition of any approval.
Yes.
And there's also the table references a height of 35 feet. That can also be changed to reflect the new proposed height of 32 feet.
Correct.
Okay, and I think that's everything, but if there are any other changes shown on the architecturals that we're proposing, they could be incorporated into the engineering drawings as well.
Yes.
Any other questions?
May I ask you a question? This may not be a fair question, and do you have any sense of how tall the building is at, what is it called?
I actually have the
3,000.
architect.
Oh,
That's
sorry,
who testified.
okay.
Nope, quite all right, please, we remembered that one.
You did, you did, somebody went out there and measured it. I'd forgotten I'd asked that before.
It's quite all right.
Okay, sorry.
Understood.
Any other questions for me? Okay, and you have an architect?
Architect and then the planner, just in case there's anything else.
So I think what we'll try to do is go through your 3 professionals and then open up to the public with your 3 professionals.
Okay.
Just in terms of just timing, I think would be okay unless.
Sure.
I just have a quick.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rob.
Question for Eric. The test drive loop, that's just gonna be striping on the pavement to identify that loop? Or how will that be, will it be painted, or will it just be?
It's just an area that we depicted.
So it's not gonna be striped officially, it's just where they're gonna go in.
Do you want it striped?
No, I'm just asking if it's proposed to be striped, that's all.
No, at this point, we were just going to use that area.
That's where they'll take place in that
Correct.
area. Okay, thank you. It's on the asphalt, it's on the pavement.
But if the board would like to see that, certainly that's something we can.
I was just asking, there's no request. Thank you.
Is everyone all right with me just going through all the professionals and then we'll open, okay. See if anyone had any, okay, next up.
Next, we have our architect, Gary O'Connor.
I can ask him my question.
There you go. You're still under oath, Mr.
Was he
O'Connor?
here? Yes, he was.
I agree.
He was.
I can't remember, okay. Yes?
We were actually talking about whether or not everybody had testified last time. I said
Okay.
yes.
So you're still under oath, all right,
Yes.
very good.
Okay, so you testified at the last meeting, and since the last meeting, you revised your elevations and renderings, with the latest date of February 7th, 2025, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, could you just depict the revisions?
Pretty much going to piggyback off what you just heard from Eric, except ours are in pretty 3D pictures that
Now,
might make more
are
sense.
we marking that as an exhibit, just to be consistent?
If you want to, yeah.
Let's call that A10.
Yep.
A10, and it's revised elevation.
Yep.
Revised 2/7/25.
Yep, and that's drawing A4 of his set.
Okay.
Upper left-hand corner, a view from the roadway. You can see the sign in the foreground.
the circular oval sign, and a collection of the tractors. We talked about how we wanted to emphasize the ag equipment, so we show that right behind the sign in the foreground. And the next, over to the right, is the entranceway, and that is where we have that antique element tractor, and that's off on the left-hand side, so as you come in, you see it immediately, and you pass by it as you, as you exit. The next picture shows the sort of the service area as you kind of come into the main driveway, and in that back area is where that sort of circular test drive area is. We sort of show it here with a crosshatch, and it's sort of like a little bit of an oval, and it's, you know, it could be striped with a very simple, you know, pin with an arrow or something like that if you wanted it to be, but obviously we're just showing it here for you guys to see from far away. This next photo is depicting the main entranceway with the major, the entryway sign.
Talk about that real quick, we're reducing the size of that sign. Correct?
Yeah, if you recall, the sign was basically black, the whole background was black, which qualified as signage. So that, making this thing match the sign at the front as an oval certainly brings the square footage down. And then, of course, this lower rendering shows the land. Importantly, it shows that, you know, the land is rising here in the back. So, you know, from the residential view, you know, the building is actually very, very small. It's, you know, basically 20 feet along the front at the eave, and it goes to 32 feet. Now, it was 35. But, you know, in the back, these portions of the building are much lower. They're like under 15 feet.
And that goes to 32 feet at the peak.
At the peak.
Correct?
Yep.
It's not the entirety of the roof.
And the question came about Sweet Valley. I think Sweet Valley is about around 26 feet. And I actually had the opportunity, since we met last, looking at, somebody asked about Rutgers, and I think their peak is like 30. They have a cupola, yet another 2.5 feet for the cupola perhaps, but generally it's measured to the peak, not to a cupola.
Thank you.
And you heard the testimony, the signs will be externally illuminated, correct?
That's correct.
That's all I have for him.
Questions for him?
You mentioned comparing it to the Sweet Valley barn structure, whatever it is, which has a great deal of glass in it. And clearly there was an attempt to make this look like a barn. I'm not seeing that here. What I'm seeing here is a warehouse. I'm sorry, it just looks like a warehouse. It doesn't look like a barn, it doesn't look like, I'm just a bit, this is just one person with 85-year-old eyes. But,
So we did use sort of, you know, barn vernacular architecture. So we have, you know, panels, you know, vertical panels, you know, board and batten panels on here. We made them red, barn red. We are utilizing stone. So we're using, you know, natural materials, stone in between these bays. Yes, we do have glass, but we also have these large wood beams, some brackets, some deep overhangs with some nice deep shadows to, you know, to provide some nice, you know, depth along the street line. So this is, you know, what you see here in the front is the sales floor.
Looks like about 3/4 of that front facade is glass, give or take. So for maybe one panel?
Yeah, on the far end over here, it's
Yeah.
a little more, you know, this is sort of bathrooms down, you know, behind here, service bays, a couple of high punched open windows, you know, similar to what you'd find in the barn, you know, with a punched opening. But again, you're getting down to the sales floor, you want to walk up and be able to see inside and see what, you know, see what's going on, see the tractors, see the machinery. So that's part of the excitement about, you know, coming here to select a new piece of equipment.
Thank you.
This is probably more of a question for the owner than for you, but you mentioned servicing. Will there be servicing of these, there'll be a servicing bay where people are servicing the vehicles you sell?
Yes, that's correct.
Anyone else have more questions?
I just want to make a statement that I find this building pretty attractive for this kind of business, and the frontage is basically, like you said, about 3/4 of the glass. And it just, yeah, there is a lot of architecture elements, like area barn, so this is pretty attractive one.
Well, thank you.
That's my personal opinion.
I like your personal opinion.
While we're on the subject of this, of the appearance, and this is not necessarily appearance, I don't know where this belongs, but we were talking about Rutgers. You know, they have that impermeable or permeable surface parking lot instead of that expanse of blacktop. I don't know, maybe that's not, would not work with his equipment, but I'm putting it out there. I'm not even asking you to do it because I don't really know, but I'm just putting it out there as a consideration.
What kind of papers do they have,
It's concrete,
Like permeable where the grass grows through, or?
It's the block.
It's been a minute since I've been there.
Yeah. The brand name.
But it doesn't have that black
Yeah.
concrete, black feeling with all those stripes on it.
It's called Grasscrete. That's
Yeah.
the brand name. Just came to me.
What's it called?
Grasscrete. So basically, it has little squares. But, you know, maybe the engineer can answer this, but
So,
they get clogged up. I mean,
there's a bunch of different manufacturers on the market, and some of them are structurally stable for traffic loads, and Checkered Block is one of them, but that's a brand. And those pavers, I think they're probably 16 by 16, but they're reinforced, so they can actually carry traffic loads. They do have a bunch of other ones which are more ornamental and meant for periodic use.
Okay.
Parking areas where you're gonna be frequently on,
Yeah.
they're not really suitable.
Okay. I'm just putting it in the mix. I don't want to ask for it because I don't really know what it means.
I think there is a really big problem with the snow removal for the pervious.
Oh, okay.
It's basically impossible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not my
Especially on
area.
commercial sites.
Not my area of expertise right now. Okay.
Do you have a picture of the sign that is going to be, like, an example of, like, what it's going to be seen from the highway?
Do you have that on your other drawings?
well, I'm going to come a little closer, man. So, I mean, this is what it's going to look like from the highway.
Oh, so there's not gonna be another, like, roadside, sign?
That's this one right here.
Oh, that's that one. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is that, okay, I have well, this was, I think it was previously submitted, but is that enough? Is that one okay?
Yeah, I thought
Okay.
the last one that I saw was like a rectangular one.
That's what
Okay.
was going to be
Okay.
above the front door, that was 96
Okay.
square feet. This is
Got
the
it.
reduced one that we mirrored after the freestanding sign that's now 52.
Okay, that's definitely more aesthetically pleasing. Okay.
I thought so too.
Any other questions for this witness, or then, and Mr. O'Brien, do you have anything before?
No, I have any
Okay.
additional questions.
And just, Mr. Kyle arrived at,
I heard everything.
you heard
perfectly, by
everything
the way.
at 8:50? We kept you company all the way down 295? Yeah.
It's good, I could hear everything fine.
Yeah.
So,
You sat right there.
and I appreciate the accommodation.
Thank you.
These are strange times we're living in with these affordable housing deadlines. so.
Yeah.
My last witness is just our planner.
Okay.
And he's open for questions. I think he completed his testimony the last meeting, but there may be some other things he might want to just say for the board based upon what you've heard tonight. Mr. Takina?
Hi,
You
Hi
are still
again.
under oath as well.
I am.
Okay. You've heard the testimony, you've heard the questions of the board, you remember what was said at the last meeting. What do you have for us?
Well, the most important thing we heard tonight was the applicant agreeing that 75% of the business is going to be farm machinery and equipment, which is a permitted use in the district. So
I think the applicant's gone very far to accommodating many of the board's concerns. You know, I think we still meet all the requirements for the use variance, if the board still believes we need one. Again, 75% of a use is pretty far there. It's not uncommon, as you know, with all of your agricultural industries, to have other things that help to pay the bills for our farm uses. And actually, your highway office district has done that. It has expanded many of its uses through your 2022 master plan, where you expanded the uses to recognize that many of these farm-adjacent experiential uses need to exist within the township in order to, again, encourage the retention of our farmland. We would note that the property is slightly less than 5 acres. So while we recognize that the intent to preserve farmland, and it is tilled at the moment, we actually don't even qualify as a farm. So, you know, it has been for sale for a good long period of time, and it's certainly an appropriate location on 202 for this use. And the site is particularly suited because primarily of the topography. The primary concern of the HO district is not having an impact on the village of Ringgoes. And we think by sitting as low as we do, taking advantage of the height to reduce the height as it relates to the residences behind us with the landscaping that's proposed. We think we've done a very nice job of mitigating any potential impacts. And I'm glad that Ms. Teresi mentioned that the building is attractive. I think it's authentic. We're recognizing we're a farm machinery business, and we're not trying to be something we're not. I think we've done a nice job with, Gary did a nice job with the architecture of using traditional materials, the shed forms of the roof, having the gable end, using the traditional farm materials, but recognizing what the use is with nice light in the front. And I think it has a bit of a farm stand look to it myself. So I think it's done a really nice job of fitting in with all of the necessity. And in terms of the D6 variance, we've indicated why the height is necessary. That is a component of the findings under Grasso, to say why is the height necessary. It is for the storage of the particular farm equipment and the machinery that we're talking about having in this business. And we believe that the applicant has reduced it to the greatest extent possible. So I think all of the requisite findings under Grasso for the D6 variance are there for the board. And we reduced our bulk variances, reduced our sign by almost half, eliminated the setback variance, we're externally illuminated. I think the applicant's done a very nice job of mitigating many of those concerns of the board. And again, the most important one being 75+% of the business is going to be farm machinery. I think that's kind of the threshold issue here. And again, I think we're practically permitted use. I'm glad you're a joint board. We don't have to get bounced. You retain jurisdiction.
I do have a question. I actually, last time we were here in January, I actually misstated and I said we don't have a lighting ordinance. It's one of those things where you've heard it enough times. We do have a lighting ordinance, and we just improved our lighting ordinance, for lack of a better word. I just want to make sure that, does this, application comply with all of our ordinances in terms of, lights out at night?
Yes.
Motion lights only, basically no light.
Yes,
Motion
that was
only.
testified to at the
Okay.
last meeting, that we'd have security lighting on motion detection, so that we're not having any extreme. You did hear Mr. Boris is concerned about theft. He
Yes.
does have equipment outside because of the nature of the equipment.
Yep.
So we are going to have obviously security lighting and those things, but.
But is it fair to say that if you drove by there at night, it was dark, you would have no light, but if you walked onto the property,
The light would
the
go
light
on.
would go on? Is that the experience I would expect?
Yes.
I had, so we had submitted that list of potential conditions. One of the things I had was motion sensors shall be installed on the security lighting, which shall be set on motion sensors to be reduced to 50% intensity as determined by the board professionals. So that must have come up at some point, but certainly, if we can work with them to make sure that the intensity is compliant with the ordinance.
I have another question as well, and this one's related to your testimony, but probably more directed toward you. And that's about your webpage and your Facebook page, which I must admit I haven't looked at. But I wanted to make sure that those two entities reflected and emphasized the agricultural side of your business, because your name as Jersey Power Sports does not. And so I think we would definitely need something that would let people who first contact you through the website or the Facebook page know that this is primarily an agricultural equipment dealership.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I know on our Facebook page, the cover photo is actually a large field. So that's one thing. But we're more than happy to adjust everything on the homepage to definitely suit what we're going after.
Yeah, we could say that it reflects the operations facility, something
Yes,
along those lines.
if we're aiming for 75% agricultural equipment, we need to emphasize wherever people first encountered business, that it's primarily agricultural business. Because Jersey's Power Sports, quite frankly, does not reflect that.
Understood, and you heard the testimony as to where that came from, but yes, no, I completely understand.
Anyone else, questions for the planner? Rob?
No question.
No, nothing. I will open it up to the public. May I have a motion to open the public for questions of the three professionals? So we have the architect, planner, and the engineer.
So moved. Second.
Without objection, we are open to the public for questions of the professionals to their testimony tonight and the previous testimony. Anyone have any questions for the professionals? Going once, going twice. Okay. Without objection, we are closed to the public. So, where do we go from here?
Anything else from them?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Anything else from, I'd love to hear from you.
So the only thought I had about what I heard on the way up, there seems to be some concern about this morphing into something different if we don't have this owner and applicant. If the board is approving a use variance, you are approving something that is very specific, that has been represented by this applicant. If someone were to buy this and they weren't doing exactly what this applicant is telling you he's doing, they have to come back to this board for either an amended use variance or some other type of approval. So generally speaking, you're listening to the representations, this is what you're approving. If somebody wants to do something different, they're coming back to you and they have to make a whole other set of arguments. So just, I know there seems to be a lot of concern about that, but to me that is not a concern because you still maintain control over what you've approved because it's a use variance.
What if this applicant's business changes? What is the situation there? I'm
Well,
not
it's
saying,
It's interesting because I feel like we're on the border of this being a permitted use. The permitted use is feed, grain, farm machinery, and farm supplies and other businesses that support agriculture. So you're hearing the testimony from the applicant. He's making representations. All businesses change over time. He might be doing something a little different 10 years from now or 5 years from now. You're going to have conditions if you choose to approve this, and if there are conditions, the business changes and he wants to do something that you put a condition in that approval to address, then he's gonna have to come back to this board. So that's really hard to predict.
That would be similar if the business was sold to somebody else, that if you want to upgrade his business to some other thing, it would be the same thing.
Correct. If it was outside the boundaries that you want to set, then yes, he would have to come back. So any change in a condition that they approach you to change, they have to provide notice, we have to have a hearing, the whole thing.
I was gonna say that too. If there's any conditions in an application that maybe a new owner wants to change, they have to come back to the board.
Okay. You need to open it, I'm gonna open it to the public for comment. If we're done. May I have a motion to open to the public? May I have a motion?
May I make a comment?
One second. Second, okay, without objection, we are open to the public for comment.
And any testimony, do you want to give your name to the?
Yes.
And then,
Yes, my name is William Denai. My wife Judy and I have lived in East Amwell for 48 years. I'm a former coach of the Amwell Valley All-Stars. I haven't really, and I own this property at present,
Okay.
I haven't really been following it that much, other than what's going on, and, you know, we have to go to another meeting. But something came to my attention that really bothered me, and that was the clear distinction between Jersey Power and Joe's Jersey Motor. So Friday, when my wife came home, she said, "Oh my God," she said, "you should see all the motorcycles on 22." And I'm like, oh boy, I wonder if the board's going out for pizza also and seeing all these motorcycles. So I wanted to get that clear in my mind. So my wife and I went up, and we went in Jersey Power Sports, and I said to the owner, "Are you part of Jersey Motor?" And he said, "No." He said, "We sell motorcycles, they sell agricultural equipment." And I thought that clearly defined the neighbor who sells the motorcycles, that in his mind, and the comment he made to me was, "No, that's agricultural." So I just wanted to mention that because I didn't have it clear in my mind. Jersey Motor, Jersey Motor,
So
Jersey Power.
I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying you went into which business and asked?
I went into Jersey Power,
Okay,
and it was filled with motorcycles.
Jersey Motor.
I'm sorry. It was filled.
this is why I'm asking the question. I want to make sure.
We're glad you did.
So I'm still confused. So anyhow, when I went in, I asked, "Are you the owner?" And yes, and I said, "Do you own the other business?" "No." And he said his business is motorcycles, which one could gather because all kinds of people are running around with their shirts on and motorcycle gear. And I said, "Well, what about the other business?" And he said they sell agricultural type of vehicles. Thank you.
And I, since you gave testimony, do you swear that the testimony that you gave is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I certainly can.
Okay. We'll take it.
You have a Bible?
No,
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 you're
I
good.
asked you the question, you said, you confirmed, we're good.
Okay.
That's it, thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Come on up.
Yep, anybody who's going to be talking, can you just raise your right hands and, do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give before this board is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. Hi.
And give your name, I'm sure everybody knows.
Frida Ralph again, East Amwell, longtime East Amwell Township resident. I have been against this application from the get-go. The 5-acre lot is way too small with all the restrictions of space for septic wells, stormwater management, etc. And the reason I asked the question of the applicant is that I was hoping to get an answer as to specific properties that he had looked at, because it may not be for sale, but the old Agway in downtown Flemington, it's the corner of North Main and Walter Ferran Boulevard has huge buildings, huge parking, both sides of the street. It may not be, I don't have access to, and it's been there forever. There might have to be some demolition and remodeling, but it's got city sewer, city water. Anyway, I won't go further with that. What the applicants are attempting to do is to get the exposure they currently have, being adjacent to McDonald's and close to ShopRite and the other shopping center. And it's at our expense. We have lower taxes, so that's probably what attracted them to us, and we're on 202. And in addition to a use variance, the use variance, there are numerous bulk applications are being requested. The bulk variances needed are not minor, even with the changes. Building height 32 over 20 is 1.6 times what is allowed. Parking 23 over 70 is approximately 1/3, and 9 by 20 parking lots. Most of the people that do this kind of shopping, whether it's for ATVs or for farm equipment, are going to be driving big trucks, big SUVs, and I'm not sure where they have handicap parking or not. And then the signage, 52 now over 32 is 1.63 times what's allowed. And one has to consider whether it's an asset or a detriment to our community. It's definitely detrimental, both visually for the neighbors in back, because when the leaves are off the trees, they're going to see everything, and the noise of the people test driving something. And in terms of motion sensing lighting, I was in Flemington a couple of weeks ago at an apartment complex, and there was a deer. So there's going to be deer setting those motion sensing lights off all the time. It happens at my house. Frankly, we don't need them because up the road, in terms of equipment, we have Tractor Supply, Home Depot, Lowe's, and then last but not least, which a lot of you people who are new in the community may not even know about, is Waltz on Larison Lane, and it's between John Ringo and Old York Road, and he got variances years ago, and if you didn't know he was operating that lawnmower business, and he's gone to the commercial stuff too, you wouldn't know it because he has lots and lots of impervious coverage and 2 buildings, but the buffering that he's done with his landscaping, you wouldn't know it. And there's no lights on at night at all. And he's not even open on, well, he's open half day on Saturday. I've used him ever since I lived here. And in terms of a hardship, there is none. The hardship is self-inflicted by choosing a property that's not suitable. And then to go further, inside the testimony, well, the testimony is that they're primarily agricultural. And I actually, a few months ago now, but after I was aware of this application, I actually was at buying stuff at the pool hot tub place that's next door for my hot tub, and I saw a boat outside. So I went inside because I was looking for a cleat to put onto a tree for my squirrel deterrent bird seed, and inside was 80 to 90% of there was one little Segway, there was big stuff, little stuff, mostly recreational sports stuff, not agricultural. And so I think that's, oh, okay. And as a longtime resident, I humbly request that you deny the use variance and be done with it once and for all. Thank you.
Ms. Roth, can I just ask a question? Do you live within 200 feet of the property?
No, I don't, but I have friends that do.
That's okay. I just wanted to see if you got notice and you lived.
No, I was not noticed.
Thank you.
I've just
That's okay.
read the VIP.
That's okay. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Come on up. Did you raise your hand before, or do you need to be sworn in? Getting that
You need to be sworn in.
All right. Can you give your name for the record?
Blaine Hummel.
Okay, and Can you raise your right hand? You swear that the testimony that you're about to give before this board is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
I'm going to beg your indulgence because this is about 30 minutes. I've been sitting on it since February. So
We can't have 30 minutes of public comment.
We can't? Then I'll talk quickly.
Okay, well, I'll give you,
5.
yeah, let's try and do it in 5.
Well, does this include my introducing myself?
Because the clock is not started.
Okay, so my name is Blaine Hummel, and I've been a township resident since the mid-'80s. My background is biology, environmental engineering, and 40 years or so of professional experience on all sorts of environmental work worldwide, 35-something countries. And anyway, I'm here today. Since locating in the township, I've lent a hand in convincing Hunterdon County that East Anwell was not a good location for a county-wide waste disposal site. Some of you may remember that. I've also chaired the Township Environmental Commission.
Excuse me, Mr. Hummel, I want to beg your indulgence here, since you have a lot to say here.
Okay, so
if you could
I just
go
wanted
the
to establish who I
matter
was.
part. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So the genesis of this presentation was, has been discussed on a number of occasions here. The nature of the business, the proponent currently occupies property over on Reville Avenue in Flemington, and a Google Street View of the property consulted on 13 February showed the building surrounded on all sides by asphalt paving, with several ATVs, UTVs, and dirt bikes displayed along the front of the building and parked 2 to 4 deep around the rear. A more detailed review 3 days later revealed a broad diversity of recreational vehicles and associated equipment, including a robust selection of accessories and apparel, from jackets and clothes to, of course, motorized equipment. I counted 15 different brands and multiple models of motorized and specialty equipment, including ATVs, UTVs, amphibious vehicles, and on, but one brand of equipment designed to make your ATV side-by-side or dirt bike street legal. Further, the equipment inventory included a broad selection of snowblowers and so on and so forth. And then there was the Bad Boy brand, consisting of 18 individual lines of gasoline, diesel, and e-powered commercial and residential riding mowers, handheld gardening, and landscaping tools, and the Bad Boy tractors. Single line from the brand showing 14 models of tractors tagged contractor, commercial, and residential, and 4 models tagged agriculture specifically. Not can be used for, but this was specifically agriculture. Now, issues of potential concern. I'm not going to make this in 5 minutes. I can't do this. But Bad Boy brand is the single brand among the 15 carried by the proponent which references any equipment intended for farming or agriculture. And only 4 tractor models are designated for use in farming and agriculture, with the other 14 designated for use as contractor, commercial, and residential. And that's the issue. We're talking here about things that are designated for farming and agriculture, not stuff that can be used for as well. On 13 February, the website showed Bad Boy was the brand and Bad Boy Tractors was one single line of the brand. But on 16 February, 3 days later, the website showed Bad Boy Tractors as an entire standalone brand, no longer just one line. And all 18 tractor models, not just 4, were tagged agriculture and farming. And you can also add that you can check that out by consulting the nonprofit Internet Wayback Machine Archive, which is webarchive.org. Recall that 4 tractor models are expected to show a far greater financial performance than that generated by the combined recreational vehicle side alone in order to meet the tenet of the township plan, which is 70 to 75% sale in agriculture. Given that the proponent's business, personal, and professional reputations have been built on motorized recreational vehicles and associated equipment, and the proponent's advertising continues to focus and even expand on recreational vehicles, I ask, is it reasonable to assume that 70% of the proponent's sales will come from farming and agriculture? Now, recognizing the recent changes by the proponent to his website, how will the township assess the veracity of which equipment passes the test for farming and agriculture? And how frequently will the proponent's audited financial and inventory records be presented or made available to the township for review in order to confirm a preponderance of sales made in the agriculture and farming sector? Every quarter, half year, or yearly? Were additional approval granted for this, were conditional approval granted for this application, what will happen, and I think we've discussed this, if the proponent does not meet the tenet of the sale required within the first year? Will he be allowed to continue his business, or will he be required to shutter the business and put it up for sale? In which case, maybe a codicil saying you can't pass on the whole deal without renegotiating it or rediscussing it. But that is a concern. In moving forward, consider the wording on the lighted sign which the proponent proposes to display at the entrance to the building. It shows 4 brands associated according to the preliminary and final site plan: Bobcat, Bradley, Segway, and Stark.
That sign is not going to be proposed, nor is that part of our application, just for the record.
Okay, then I withdraw that part, but I motion that these are 4 brands that are being considered as being added to the suite of products carried by the proponent.
I'm watching the time, you're coming up on almost 6 minutes, if you could just wrap up,
I could wrap up.
please.
Well,
Excuse me, I find this testimony to be very probative, and this gentleman clearly has spent a great deal of time preparing to educate this board, and I would ask that we extend his time. This is not rambling. This gentleman is I think is right on target in terms of the issues that are before this board, that I would like to hear more of this testimony.
I would like to
Anyone else
emphasize
object?
that
Did anyone object? No? Okay.
I'm
If you
not,
could just
and just to
please
point
be
out,
succinct.
I'm not trying to say I'm for or against. What I'm doing is, as a good environmental consultant, I'm pointing out to you the potential issues for you to consider this in your decision. Okay? I will pick it up at this point. Okay, issues of potential concern. The proponent has clearly built a reputation on the sale and servicing of gasoline, diesel, and e-powered, that's electrical powered, motorized recreational vehicles and equipment, and this is reflected in the inventory. Bad Boy is the single brand among the 15 carried by the proponent, which references any equipment intended for farming and agriculture specifically. But only 4 tractor models are designated for use in this, with the remaining designated for use on contractor, commercial, and residential, which is not to say they couldn't be used in farming, and I recognize that, as do you. This notwithstanding, it's my understanding the proponent has offered that now 75% of all future sales will be intended for use in agriculture and farming equipment. And to this end, the proponent has made changes to his website to show a more focused effort on farming, and I've said that to you. You can check that out on the Wayback Machine. Now, were conditional approval granted, could it pass it on? I think we've agreed that that can be seen to. The sign is no longer an issue, except that it points out that he's got interest in bringing different additional equipment. But nothing so far on additional things on farming and agriculture. So, 3 points to close out this section. The proponent's product inventory clearly shows depth in recreational vehicles and equipment, and there is a paucity of anything associated with agricultural or farming. Note that potential buyers from across the township and surrounding area, including in Pennsylvania, who are really seeking farming and agricultural equipment, can stop in, browse, and buy well-known brands carried by Everett's Equipment, Eagle Power Kubota, Dave's Equipment, and Waltz Outdoor Center, all of whom have developed solid reputations within this community on the strength of their long-established sales and repair businesses. And these, I hope, are well known to you folks. They've been here for eons. Finally, if a buyer absolutely must have a bad boy farming tractor, they can shop at any of 30-plus stores in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, located within a 50-mile radius of Ringo's, which carry this franchised brand. Period. Now, the proposed new location, Section 2. They only have 3 sections, fortunately. At this point, I urge the proponent's application, along with any associated documentation, presentations, including from this evening, any follow-up information, any communications, be shared with the Township Board of Health for review and comment, as there are a number of questions and issues of real concern which clearly fall within their purview. The proponent is planning to acquire the property, as said, construct a one-story building occupying an area of 19,614 square feet under roof. The structure will include retail, warehousing, and service spaces. There will also be an attached outdoor storage area, a concrete floor dumpster pad, a standalone bioretention basin, the latter designed to receive and passively treat stormwater runoff from across the building roof and the asphalted driveway and parking spaces. As shown on the township tax map, the property is in irregular shape. I won't beat that to death, you've all heard it before. A visual survey from the edge of 202 South, and I used binoculars because the property was private and I couldn't walk all over it. And I'll give you the dimensions, but I'll leave a copy of this incidentally so that you can look at it later.
I would object to that.
And I can leave a copy for you.
Your testimony will be enough, thank you.
Okay. The property drops roughly 15 feet in elevation from the upper edge of the treed western slope to the state-built concrete head wall, which directs water to a stormwater drainage pipe installed beneath 202. That's US 202. As well, a broad but shallow drainage swale has developed over time, originating in the tree line on lot 1901. This swale collects and channels stormwater and snowmelt from across much of 1901, as well as parts of lots 1903 and 19. And note, please, that all 3 of these lots are shown on the tax map as being served by intermittent stream. And it joins drainage along the base of the entire shoulder of US 202 to the head wall and pipe. Issue of potential concern. And this is a question that's more technical. What is the actual size of 1901? Because a brief review of 8 of the official documents shows that it appears to range from 4.9 to 6.29 acres. And I list all 8. There's the EIA prepared by Golden Baum, showing 4.9 acres. There's the East Amwell Township Planning Board notice of the meeting showing 5 acres. There's the Township Tax Map from 2004 showing 5 acres. The most recent tax map, which I think is 2324, in a document accompanying the application showing 4.93 plus or minus acres, and it goes down to 6.298 acres in something sent to the Huntco Health Department in August, and so on. Now, from my own experience, should documents submitted for review and approval by government agencies be accurate or is close enough acceptable? If any subsequent drainage, pipe flow calculations, and so on are at risk of not being accurate because they're based on inaccurate acreage sizes, should these documents be recalled from the agencies, corrected, and resubmitted to the agencies for reapproval? Number 2, as there are no public water supply and distribution system in the township, a water well will be required. The yield of high-capacity wells within the underlying Brunswick aquifer on site, which is graded C in the Aquifers of New Jersey open file, dated 98, is typically between 100 and 250 gallons a minute. It is understood that the final drilled and case depth of any well is a function of the yield versus the demand plus a reasonable cushion. That said, it would be interesting to see all purposes for which the water will be used, whether the water will be tested for potability and with what frequency, if the water will be treated in any way, and if the water will be sourced on demand from the well or piped to a storage tank located inside or outside the building. If on the outside, will it be heat traced? Note the documentation presented by the proponent states there may eventually be 12 to 14 employees. So in addition, there may be clients, deliverymen, and servicemen who may require use of the facilities, and water may be used in groundskeeping activities as well as in vehicle cleaning and servicing. It's even reasonable to assume the proponent may need to install an employee locker room, perhaps shower stalls, multiple toilets, certainly, and numerous hand washing basins, or not. 12 to 14 employees. Item 3, as the client will be installing a sanitary system consisting of a septic tank and leach field, it's clear that the septic tank will be collecting material from floor cleanup, drainage, and washed off employee hands, including metals, spilled solvents, oil and grease, and so on. Will the proponent plan to collect samples from the septic tank for testing prior to removal to ensure the material is not hazardous by definition? Also, does the proponent have any thoughts about stopping contamination from flowing from the tank to the passive leach field? 4, the proponent does not appear to specify how the building will be heated. Will it be by natural gas, as I assume, or electricity, propane, or fuel oil? Will there be any backup heating provided in the event of an extended power outage? And if so, what is the proposed fuel, and where and how will it be delivered and stored on site? Will there be a backup electric generator, and how will it be fueled? I gather there will be a forklift. Will it be electric, propane, or liquid fueled? And how will fuel get to the site if that's the case? Item 7, will there be any liquid filled or and pressurized storage tanks on site? Where will these be located? What will be the sizes, and what will they contain? Will these be electrically grounded, signed, contained, and protected by walls or bollards, or located underground? And if containment is provided, how will any accumulated groundwater, rainwater, or snowmelt be dealt with? Now, will the outdoor area of the building identified as storage be fenced or walled? And will it be roofed or open to the elements? And what will be the nature of the substrate? How will access be controlled? What will be stored therein, and for what general lengths of time? Will activities within include power washing, spray painting, tear down repairs, or what? If vehicles are stored there awaiting repair, how will dripping, leaking oil, grease, and fuel be dealt with? How will spillage and waste be contained, collected, and stored and disposed of? And I ask the latter particularly because a brief review of the proponent's website in early February showed a brief video clip of employees hosing down mud-caked motorcycles and ATVs awaiting repair at the rear of the building in Flemington and flushing the debris to a municipal drainage grate, which of course we don't have here. And mindful of the township's concern over loud noise, what sort of noise levels over what periods of time can be expected of doing repair work outside? Regarding activities within the surface department area, I assume that metal grinding, spray painting, and fiberglass repair work will likely be carried out. Details on any ventilation and fire suppression systems would be of interest. Further, the proponent will undoubtedly be storing, handling, and using a variety of other hazardous materials and creating a number of hazardous waste streams. I would suggest at least 2 separate storage areas be designed, constructed, and operated by the proponent within the building proper or within standalone outbuildings for the storage of hazardous, unused, and waste materials, including but not limited to paints, solvents, gasoline, oil, hydraulic fluid, paint thinner, diesel fuel, alcohol, electric batteries, fiberglass, compounds, and the like, as well as spent waste, aerosol cans, leftover paint thinner mixtures, dead batteries, waste fuel oil mixtures, waste fiberglass materials and containers, waste oil, used absorbent material, and other corrosives, ignitables, reactives, and toxic waste materials, which will be generated on this site. I would also urge the proponent to plan and operate these areas with an eye to ease of access, the use of spark-resistant materials during construction, and spark-resistant tools within the areas during normal activities, as well as spark-proof lighting and heating, passive ventilation, electric grounding, fire response, and necessary runoff water collection.
Mr. Hummel, can I interrupt for a moment, please?
Please.
A lot of the things that you're mentioning will be covered by the zoning, by current zoning. Excuse me?
Construction.
By universal construction code and zoning requirements.
Okay.
Those are not necessarily considerations for the variances here. I just want to
Okay,
try to
I
expedite
will now
this.
jump to the next, which is no longer that. Okay. Thank you, though, for your patience. Regarding the fire abatement and response, recall there's no township-wide fire water distribution and stanchion system, nor is there a full-time fire department. As such, consider that a reasonable response time for the volunteer fire department from receipt of an alarm through notification of the volunteers and arrival at the site with the fire truck, tanker truck, and the first group of responders, because it's understood that other responders will join them, would be in the order of 20 to 30 minutes, is my estimate. Good weather permitting. Consider, too, that the only readily available water will be a tanker truck, or drawing water from the biobasin would be predicated on the presence of thickness of ice, the depth of the...
Don't I recall that there was water tanks being put on site for fire prevention? 'Cause I
So
think
there will be...
There are codes that
Okay.
they're dealing with for fire prevention.
That's
It's
perfect.
part of the testimony.
That's perfect, because I wasn't aware of that. I'm just pointing out what to me would be something needed. Okay, good. We're there.
Testimony.
But would the proponent consider the installation of an automatic fire abatement system?
Would that be covered by construction?
Or perhaps a water-based sprinkler deluge, or a dry powder ABC, or foam, or a CO2-based system, which might be more appropriate. Just options, not just water.
Yeah, I would,
Because the water at the end of the day is something you'd want to try and capture, because it might be contaminated before it leaves the site.
Again, I think that's covered under code.
Mechanical
Okay.
is covered by, if the mechanical fire, it would not be water, they'd have to have somebody else, so that is involved with that.
Okay. And I'll ask just a nod or not, has anybody discussed where this water eventually goes? Okay, got it, thank you. Backup electricity, we talked about. Waste generated because of the fire abatement. Now, the proponent is planning to cut 0.54 acres of wooded area in order to accommodate the building footprint. Since the wooded area appears to encroach primarily on the outdoor storage area and rear of the building, is there any way that the proponent might reorient or make the storage area somewhat smaller in size in order to preserve all or some additional part of the woods, as doing so will enhance groundwater retention and slow or abate runoff across the property? We're just talking a little thing here, but they're going to cut 20% of the woods. Now, does the proponent have any plans for the undeveloped balance of the property? For example, displaying other types of equipment, and I don't know that this has been discussed, such as snowmobiles, jet skis, utility and vehicle trailers, or different...
We had an agreement on, there was a discussion of where there will be things displayed, and I think there was actually questions about anything else going on the property.
Yeah, because the point I wanted to make was that this property is, in my opinion, ideally suited for the display of serried rows of assorted equipment. I mean, it's just great. You can see it both ways, and it sort of would end up looking like Flemington, the car dealerships, and that, to me, would be awful. But
I agree with you.
Okay.
We've discussed this.
okay, and we've discussed that boats will not be.
We have discussed that.
Okay, I was in the back and I was listening. Boats will not be, even though boats is an integral part of what's going on in Flemington right now. Okay. Thank you.
and just for the record, I'm not trying to go either way, I'm just trying to move things along.
I'm down to the last 2 pages. Thank you.
Can you do it in
But
3
again,
minutes?
I'm not hearing anything about farming or agricultural equipment, so I just wanted to say that. How about, okay. I have just learned that there's going to be a small track put down on the property.
No.
No,
No.
not a track, I'm sorry. What was it that's being put down?
There was a discussion about, we had discussions about specifically where the test drives would happen. And so
Okay.
noted on the plan was, you know, one of the things we talked about is where the test drive's gonna happen, how often are they gonna happen, where's the equipment gonna be,
Right.
where's the how is
Okay.
it gonna look from the road?
Okay.
So that's what we were trying to discuss.
So my question was, if you recall, back in February, the idea was that the testing of vehicles would happen on the asphalt driveway. Now it's moved to the property, and we're looking at.
No,
It's
no,
not-
no changes.
It's still gonna be on the driveway.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you, I haven't looked at that. Okay, no, that's good. So, purely as an interest, is there any thought at all, or is there anything that can be put in writing that the client might, I beg your pardon, the proponent.
Applicant.
The proponent
Okay.
might decide to put out a track along the back of the property, leading from the top of that property to the bottom and back. And the reason I say this is because they're trail bikes, they're things like that that people want to really try, not really go in circles or that sort of thing. And I point out, just for the sake of discussion, that it would be a straightforward exercise to purchase lot 1902, thereby providing potential rally track or similar with always sought after elevation. It's the end piece of this length of property that joins 202 and Old York Road. And perhaps the owner of lot 1903 would be willing to part with the measure of space, which either options then would provide for a really good rally track, in my estimation. On the issue of the lighted sign, I'm pointing out that in addition to the issue of light pollution, which you've already, I think, beaten to death, it should be noted that large bright things, more so if flashing, detract from what's going on around you and present a potential hazard when driving a car at speed. And I simply point out that the distance between the traffic lights at Old York Road and Sweet Valley Farms, there's no lights, there's no buildings, there's nothing. So somebody driving a vehicle, even at normal speeds, would be able to see this building right there. So I can't see a need for anything exorbitant or anything bigger than what the requirement would be to have a sign in terms of size. Now, the biobasin. The paved area, okay, as noted, the building footprint, paved area are so placed as to occupy only a small area of the overall property. But this configuration also raises a concern about the amount of available vehicle maneuvering space. 3 worst case but plausible examples, and I have always learned to think in case of worst case. Were a client to buy a model of Bad Boy tractor, which we've determined has at least 4 models that are agricultural, which is not on display, it would have to be delivered from the Bad Boy plant in Batesville, Arkansas, which is 1,200 miles away. And since the Bad Boy brand is a franchise, it's reasonable to expect that the plant will assemble a load to make it more cost-effective delivery run to franchisees located along the route. And that would likely require the use of a standard 80-foot-long interstate tractor trailer. Now, if other vehicles are loading or unloading or seeking to enter or leave the site as this truck is arriving to deliver the load, the tractor trailer will have to pull over onto the shoulder of US 202 and idle until the area is cleared before entering the driveway, at which point its presence might impede or preclude other deliveries. But once unloaded, I cannot see how the rig will easily turn around on site to exit the property without possibly damaging the building or the rig. This leaves 2 options. Either the rig backs out onto the shoulder of 202 and the deep ditch protected by a guardrail on the blind right side, and requiring someone behind the trailer to flag the traffic and keep the driver apprised of danger as they back out, Or do not enter the site in the first place, but pull over and unload the crated equipment on the shoulder of the highway. Almost done. Thank you. The size of a new fully grown Ford, Toyota, or Chevy pickup is about 21 by 8. Add a trailer of a size to drop off or pick up a larger ATV, UTV, or tractor, and you add another 16 feet or so in length. Then add the length of the trailer gate or ramp and the vehicle to be unloaded or loaded, and you'll need at least 55 feet of space to safely complete the exercise. Now, if a trash truck or delivery truck or similar sized pickup or trailer were to show up at roughly the same time, the only logical place to park them both would be side by side in front of the service area, which is 80 feet long and 55 feet wide, effectively taking up half the paved area. Item last, the paved parking and backup area fronting on the building is 48 feet deep between the bollards at the front and the curbing along the bottom edge of the paved area. Recall that a full-sized SUV or pickup measures 21 feet in length without adding a trailer. For a truck alone, but carrying, say, a bike reverse out of a parking space at regular speed, there could be very little room for error if the driver hesitated, the brakes failed, or the truck hit an icy patch before it would end up in the basin. Now, I do have some questions about the basin.
So, Mr. Hummel, can you wrap up, please? We're at a half hour since you.
Okay, I'm going to jump to the very last one, which is where the water goes. Okay, this is it, promise. Because I really do have a professional opinion, first of all, about the setup. All of this water coursing off the property, down to the channel, into a space between the basin and the revetment of the highway, and then to a concrete heading and 90 degrees across into that. I really worry about that because I don't believe the hydraulics have been thought through, particularly since it's going to happen in one fell swoop, and it would be really complicated if someone had accidentally thrown out a bag of trash, or someone had dropped a tire off or something and it got picked up and it got taken along as well. So just please consider that in looking at the basin. Item last. Item last. Here we go. In my professional opinion, the proposed development presents a very long-term risk to water quality and aquatic life downstream of the point of discharge of the basin. Recall that the gradient across lots 1901 and 2 shows a drop in elevation between 14 and 20 feet from the tree line along the entire western and northern edges to the embankment along 202 South. Rain and snowmelt are directed by gravity along the entire breadth of the open slope of the embankment, then to the concrete head wall and drainage pipe. To this will be added inputs from the septic leach field, which will receive discharge from wash basins used to clean hands, and so on and so forth. The proponent will also collect stormwater and snowmelt from building roof and surrounding asphalted areas and direct it to the basin. No treatment is described, and it's assumed the basin will act purely as a sedimentation basin. Overflow will then be directed to the head wall, where it joins the runoff from the lots, which accumulates along the entire edge of the highway.
I think we understand what you're saying, and it's 10 o'clock, and I want to let this
Just
board.
3 more minutes. This is.
No.
Okay, I will leave it to you that asphalt is nasty stuff. Really. You must look at what asphalt contains, and then when it goes across the highway, it's into 5 other properties and into the streams, and those are trout waters.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience, really.
I hesitate to ask, but can you please, I can't sit and not say something after that. I don't want to keep you any longer, but.
Do you want to hear from anyone else in the public first, and then do that?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
is there anyone else from the public that wants to speak? Yep, please, come on. Everyone else who wants to speak, put your hand up so we can swear you in now, so we can count your. Go ahead.
Should we take jurisdiction on the next one? And then,
Okay, fair enough, yep.
It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen, okay. Bear with us 1 second.
1 second, sir.
1 second. We, just gonna take a pause here. We have another application. We're gonna take jurisdiction and adjourn it to the next meeting, just so we don't forget to do that. Thank you, Katie. Next, we have Stanley and Carol Christic, East Amwell Township, tax map block 17, lot, jeez, I need glasses, 3206, Amwell Valley, 15 Backbrook. Applicant seeks certification of non-conforming use. So we will take jurisdiction of this.
Yep, all the notices were done properly, published properly, so the board could take jurisdiction to hear the case. And
we'll adjourn this to the next meeting, which is July 15th. The date certain, July 15th.
no need to further notice.
No further notice needed.
There's no way you could hear my application? I mean, I traveled 12 hours to get here.
It's 10 o'clock at night. We cannot take a new application at 10 o'clock at night, and we still have people from the public to hear. Problem. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. It's just where we are. It's 10 o'clock at night, and we still, I mean, we need to finish the application we're on. It's, I can't do anything about it. Where were we?
Hearing from the public?
Yeah, we're hearing for the public. Thank you.
Les,
Les, come on up.
Les, were you gonna comment on the current application?
Would you state your name?
My name is Les Hamilton.
Do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give before this board is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I live in Ringo's.
I can't hear him.
At any time, if you can't hear me or understand me, please.
We can't hear you.
I live in Ringo's. I'm concerned about this application. This business heavily promotes recreational sports, power sports equipment. Is that better? Is that better? Yes? No?
Speak up.
Speak up?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, so it's my voice. So the products are mainly motorsports products. I'm hearing tonight that's suddenly going to change. And I'm concerned if the board approves this application with conditions, and the business can't meet the conditions, what are you going to do? The zoning officer can't close the business. So be very careful what you approve. Now, I oppose this variance. I don't think that motorsports equipment is similar to agricultural equipment and deserve this variance just because they both have wheels, motors, are noisy and smelly. The purpose of motorsports equipment is very different from the purpose of agricultural equipment. Will the board approve an applicant who showed up and wanted to sell agricultural equipment and flat screen TVs? Sounds ridiculous, but that's what we're talking about tonight. Bundling approved farm equipment products with a non-improved motorsports product and D1 variance, in my opinion, is just a way to sidestep the zoning. Remember that zoning enforcement of an existing business is very difficult. I'd like to briefly discuss the positive criteria. I think the first one was site suitability. Can you hear me or not?
Barely, but yes.
If this site is so suitable, why the C variances? The site is too small and too close to the neighbors. Families will sit in their backyards, staring at about 20 feet of a building, towering above the trees, smelling gasoline and diesel fumes while listening to customers and workers test driving noisy equipment in the parking lot. This business needs a site with more room to properly test drive the equipment. There's nothing unique or special about this site. Better sites are available. The second positive criteria was desirable agricultural visual appearance. Aesthetics is important. I never saw a farm building that looks like the architect's building drawing. It's a retail motorsports sales building. The large windows remind me of a car dealership. I think that the building is not properly designed to meet our requirements. And the third positive criteria was coordination of public and private procedures and more efficient use of the land. Coordinating public and private procedures, it's the job of the state and county departments to coordinate with developers. That's no reason to approve a variance. What is what is more efficient use of the land? I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a planner. I believe it is to provide significantly beneficial products and services to the community that are not available anywhere for miles around, and a use that does not bring problems into the community. This application is the opposite of efficient. The applicant's business provides duplicate products readily available at nearby farm equipment and motorsports businesses. And despite the applicant's best efforts, will bring potential and real problems to the township, like drainage, noise, solid waste, etc. Remember, if this variance is approved, these problems go on forever. What is an efficient use? I think the current use of this property is very efficient. It grows crops. It's non-polluting, no drainage problems, quiet, the neighbors like it, environmentally beneficial, and it's farming. Now, I know owners have the right to sell their property, but I think it would be better to keep this land available and wait for an agricultural business that complies with the zoning and will benefit the community. I don't think the positive criteria are reasons to approve this variance. The negative criteria is about not being a substantial detriment to the public good at large and impairing zoning. Public good to me is a safe neighborhood, a healthy neighborhood, a clean environment, an attractive neighborhood, a quiet neighborhood. In East Amwell, the public good is provided by our vision of an agricultural and village community. The motorsports business is incompatible with this vision. And the neighborhood's public good will suffer if this applicant is approved. I'm skeptical of what I've heard tonight about this business morphing from what is really a motorsports business to a 70% farm business. Approving this variance will weaken the master plan and zoning and will encourage more similar D1 applications for non-approved businesses. This is not good. And at the most basic level, if allowed, residents will see this business and wonder what happened to the Township Committee and the Board of Adjustment. They will wonder if their local government can provide the vision of the community that they want. I think this application actually fails the negative criteria.
How much more do you have?
A little bit. The previous meeting, it was noticed that the small number of residents who were noticed about this application didn't show up. It was implied that that meant that those neighbors didn't oppose this variance. Well, no one knows why they didn't show up. Were they exhausted from work and taking care of their family? Did they work at night? Were they afraid to speak up and talk in public? Or were they believing that the board will protect them? And they don't need to attend meetings.
Last of all respect, can you summarize for us, please?
Yes. I've lived here for a long time, and I can assure you that the residents for decades have said they wanted an agricultural and village community. They've shown that by the candidates they've elected to Township Committee from both parties who support that vision. In a referendum, they voted by a large majority to take their money and spend it on preserving farms. These voters include long-term residents and new residents who left overdeveloped communities to live, work, and raise their families in East Amwell. So I recommend the board do the right thing. Protect our zoning, protect our vision, and deny this variance. Thank you for your time. Thank you for putting up with me. And thank you for serving on the planning board.
Thank you, Les. Have anyone else from the public? Come on up. Hi, Tim.
Tim Willie.
Jim Willett, swear that the testimony that you're about to give before your board's truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
And just for the record, he's the former chair here,
Former chair.
so he knows not to take it long.
Yeah, been there, done that. Just a couple things real quick. I've been an East Amwell Township resident for 30 years. I grew up 3 miles down the road, spent my whole life in Harborton, so I've been here all my life. All my life, that's been a 4-lane highway. Always will be a 4-lane highway. We have some commercial zoning on there. I think it should be used. The height of the building is in question. Eric, you worked on when we approved the low-income housing. What's the height of that? I don't recall. I'm not sure if you do. I know there was issues about that, but what was the end result of that height of that building in town?
I think it was somewhere between 35 and 38 feet.
Yes. Okay? That's going in town, a building that high. Okay? That's going right next to the firehouse. That's something like that on the highway is not, I don't think it's an issue. You know, it's the highway out there. We lost the tax off that property right there, and that, you know, could, now you're gonna have a taxable piece of property out there with, you know, it's gonna have a commercial building on it, you're gonna be able to get taxed off of it. Right now it's an ag piece of property. So I just think that it's the highway out there. It's not, we're not talking about the middle of Ringo's, we're not talking about downtown. It's every farm around here, I work all around here. Every farm I see around here has at least one UTV on it. And like Jamal said, the smaller tractors are the way to go now because it's just easier to deal with. I mean, yeah, if you got somebody that's plowing 150 acres, yeah, they're gonna have a John Deere that doesn't even fit in this room. That's not what these tractors are that this gentleman's trying to sell. You know, they're for the farmettes, and we have how many farmettes in this town, you know, in this area? We have tons of them. You know, we have maps of them, of where you can buy farm stands, where you can buy, you know, whatever anybody's raising on their farms. You know, they're using this size tractor. I think this is a good fit for our township. I really do. Good luck.
Anyone else from the public? I don't think you raised your hand when we were looking for people to swear. You did, okay,
Yeah,
so you've been
I
sworn
still
in,
have to
okay.
Hi, my name is Jeff Meyer. I've been a resident for 8 years now. Just something really quick.
Hold on, do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give before this board is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I certainly do.
All right.
After 2.5 hours of that, I just have a couple things to say. The roof requirement, whatever, it's just so we can store more stuff, I get it. He also said he only sells from one site, but then he said something in his, on his website said he also sells from Lambertville. I don't know if anybody picked up on that. When he said, no, I'll never sell from anywhere else, but he does sell from Lambertville. The last thing would be, these gentlemen came really prepared, very long presentations. And when he says he doesn't know what his breakdown of what he sells is, I find it very disingenuous because a car dealer knows every model, how much they sold each year, right? ShopRite can tell you how many gallons of milk they sell a year, but he can't tell you what he sells each year. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, without objection, we're gonna close to the public. Okay. It is 10:10, I wanna let you respond, and then we'll.
I'll be very, very
okay.
quick, I promise.
Katie's looking at me like.
I know, and I'm so sorry, but again, in good conscience, I can't not say anything. I didn't object to what just happened because I certainly don't want to create an appealable issue. I do believe these people came very well prepared, but this board knows what it has to decide. It has to decide based upon the evidence, based upon the expert testimony that was provided. You heard what the problem is. What's the most efficient use of this property? Nothing, exactly what it is. That cannot be one of your considerations. You've heard the testimony of the applicant, you've heard the testimony of 3 experts, and you've heard the testimony of your 2 experts. None of the people that spoke here tonight, including the gentleman, Mr. Hummel, that must be a bad boy expert, because that seems to be everything he's concerned about as opposed to the environmental issues. You have to believe the testimony that was provided. The applicant said it will agree to a condition that it will only be selling it will be selling at least 75% of agricultural equipment, which is permitted in this zone. That's the testimony you have to take. That's the testimony that you have to base your information on at this point. Not unexpert, qualified information with regard to fire issues, engineering issues, structural issues. You must look at the application for what it is. They've tried to redesign it. What if this? What if that? That's not what is before you right now. We must comply with all state requirements, UCC requirements, building code, fire code requirements. Every single one of those must be complied with should you approve, again, the application as presented before you. The types of sales of equipment have no impact on the environment. We must comply with stormwater management measures. I say there was not one question asked of our engineer about these main concerns. Where were those questions? These were statements made during public comment with absolutely no foundation or expert basis or evidence given to you. This was pure public comment, and you cannot use any of that to contradict the expert testimony that's been provided to you. The information with regard to cutting trees, we don't need an impervious coverage variance. That can't be taken into account. The issue about the number of vehicles that they sell, the applicant testified to that. What he couldn't testify to was how many people he sold them to in your town. And I submit to you that's kind of unreasonable to know off the top of your head. Could he figure it out? I'm sure he could. But look at the application before you. Look at the beautiful building that we're looking to bring. Look at the addition that this will make to the highway area of your town, and vote based upon what was presented to you and the proofs that were provided, and not upon unsubstantiated comments made from the public. And I thank you for your time and indulging me.
Thank you. Mr. Kyle, have anything you want to add to us? Anything you want to, any guidance you want to give us?
So I think the biggest issue, and I'd like Sharon to jump in here too, I mean, we have an application for use variance for use that might be permitted. So I think the board needs to decide if this does require a D variance or not. You know, we've thrown around a lot of percentages. I'm trying to recall, I don't know that I saw anything in the ordinance that says, well, you have to sell this much equipment to be deemed an agricultural, you know, use, quote unquote. So I honestly feel like the board needs to make a decision about whether you think a D variance is needed. Because this, to me, based on the testimony that we've heard, and I agree with Ms. Kaczynski, you're basing your decision on the representations that the applicant has made throughout this process. If that changes once you approve this application, something's going on there that is not consistent with what was represented to this board, that's a major problem for him, not for you. So, you know, I think there was a comment made, well, the zoning officer can't shut down a business. If somebody comes in here and represents something falsely to gain approval, and then goes off and does something else, that's enforceable. So, to me, that's not really a consideration. But I think, based on what I've heard from the applicant, though, this might be a permitted use. And I think that's what Mr. Takina has offered. But I think that's a decision that you all have to make based on what you've heard. And I think, I was looking at the ordinance, of course my computer just died.
Third, yeah.
Section you want.
So let me plug it in. So the use that's allowed in the highway office is feed grain, farm machinery, and farm supplies, and other businesses that support agriculture. That is the permitted use. So I think you as a board need, first thing, we should just decide, is it a use variance, D1 use variance, or is it not? I think they feel that it might be a permitted use, and I think the board needs to make a decision on that. Because look, if they don't need a D variance, that takes away a huge concern in this application. And I realize why you might be hesitant to do that, but when you function as a zoning board, this is what you do. So I think that's the first issue you should dispose of. The bulk variance relief, they comply with all the setback requirements, coverage. The variances that we're talking about were for parking spaces, building height. It is a D6 variance for building height. Mr. Tykina's given you the correct criteria that you need to judge that by. You've heard some testimony from Mr. O'Connor about some of the other buildings in the area, things like that. So, I think that's really where we need to go with this. And it might prolong the discussion a little bit, but I think it's important. So,
Can I ask a question?
You may.
So, wouldn't the concerns about enforceability be better met by saying that the D variance is required, and the condition would be that 75% of the gross sales on the property are documented to be ag-related? Because then you've got a discrete enforceable, like we're allowing that with that understanding, as opposed to saying you don't need a variance at all.
I will tell you, I do a fair amount of private testimony work, so exactly what Mr. Tykina is here doing tonight for his applicant. If I can ever get rid of a D variance in an application, I'm going to do it. So if I'm the in order for us to be fair, I think we have to be judging whether the use is permitted or not. Forget about that. I agree with you that yes, it gives you more flexibility in terms of conditions, but I don't think that's a reason to say that a D variance is needed, just because it allows us to then do that. I think to do the right thing, we need to determine whether the use is permitted or not.
This is why I think we need a D variance. The stated purpose, and this is in the master plan, the stated purpose of the Highway Office District is to offer an opportunity to develop low-coverage, one-story structures for low-intensity, non-residential uses situated in the vicinity of the village of Ringgoes and along Route 202. It is intended that the siting of structures and design of open space in yard areas shall advance the goal of establishing a green belt design around the historic village of Ringgoes. Strip retail and highway commercial uses and uses with extensive lighting and signing are specifically not intended for this zone.
And where I come in is the motorcycle license. If we weren't talking about the motorcycles, and we weren't talking about basically having to have a dealer license, to me, I don't wanna say black and white, but I do believe we need a variance. I will go on the record saying that.
My concern legally is that if you determine that this is a permitted use, and you're talking about other businesses that support agriculture, you're giving an interpretation for anybody at that point, because it's not just for this application, not you, but the board is.
I don't disagree.
And so what does that mean for somebody else that's coming in that wants to do something else besides farming and wants to, throw in other things that don't have to do with farming? That's what I'm concerned with there.
But there's farm machinery
There
as
is,
part of that.
definitely.
And I think the representation that we've heard is that the intent, and the applicant said this at the very first meeting. I can't really do what I wanna do with agricultural equipment in Flemington, because I just don't have, it's just not set up for that.
Correct,
His
yeah.
desire was to evolve into more agricultural, and yet, no, it's not big combines and John Deere tractors, right? I think you kinda have to digest all the testimony that you've heard and the representations. You know, what is farm machinery? We've heard testimony about that tonight, how farming's evolved. You know, it's not all 200-acre farms and giant cornfields. It's, you know, we have I would agree with Mr. Willie, I mean, you know, we have a lot of what you would call farmettes, smaller farms that people are doing more hobby farming, not big commercial agriculture. So, look, I don't know that I have an opinion one way or the other. I just think that, and look, if you decide that it's a D variance, you don't think the use is permitted, that's fine. I just think we have to
Vote on whether
come
it's a
to a
variance.
decision on that. They've made some representations and offered an opinion, and I think you just need to make a decision on that.
And then, so you're saying it's a two-part decision?
I would
In
think
your
so,
opinion.
yeah.
Mr. O'Brien, based on, are you comfortable with everything there? You know, I know there were some issues raised, whether, you know, in terms of what's going on, you know, from, runoff and things of that nature. Are you comfortable with all the testimony you've heard, that that's all covered, and between that and the construction codes?
It's been covered, but I do have my report back from, when was this? Back from December.
Okay.
There's quite a few items that he still needs to address, one of which was brought up, the turning templates to make sure that vehicles can get in and out of there safely. That hasn't been provided yet. And I understand why it hasn't, because of how this has been going on. So those would all have to be conditions of any approval, revise the plans, we would review it, and we have a pretty extensive review of the fire retention system. He's got some things to correct and show us that he can meet the requirements, so that's typical for an application like this.
Is it typical to have them, the conditions of approval, or is it typical to have them addressed in advance?
Conditions of approval,
Okay.
because once you get the approval, get the use approved, use variance approved, that's what it's going to be.
Okay.
And then it's gonna take some time to get through all of these, revise everything. We'll
Okay.
make sure that it meets all the codes and requirements and good engineering practice, so.
Okay.
Well, we could ask Mr. Rubinstein, I mean, do you have any concern about meeting the comments in Rob's letter?
No.
Okay. I mean, that's usually the question to ask is,
Thank
do you
you.
think you can meet it? If
Yeah.
he says, you know, so.
And just for the record, that's the December 10th, 2024 letter.
Right, that's what I was saying.
Okay. Do you guys have any more questions for our professionals?
I just wanted to point out, you know, there were some questions about, well, what is the size of the property? I think from what I'm looking at, this site plan has dimensions on it, you know, and normally you go with that. If the tax maps are frequently wrong, you know, I mean, they're based on a drawing, maybe a deed, but it looks like this property's been surveyed, so it says it's 4.9228 acres. I wrote down in my notes regarding about the repairs, that they do general maintenance, everything's performed inside, they don't have to do repairs outside. They keep their gas behind a cage, per the fire department. They send their oil for recycling, they pump that out once a month. They get inspected by the fire department, both local and state, happens quite often. So, I mean, I write this into all my resolutions, I'm pretty detailed
thorough,
about
okay.
what the people have testified to. So
Okay.
that would go, and that's something that would be part of my facts.
Okay.
I think those things were covered. I think, Rob, you talked about drainage and such, and have them having to meet stormwater management requirements, correct?
Right.
As part of the report, so.
There's a whole section in there for DEP.
That's what they have to do,
DEP's gonna review it as well, so that's another review
as
that
far as
will-
that goes.
And they have to, I believe we asked for a copy of their survey, that's really where the acreage of the property is going to be identified based on the survey.
So the board has to decide whether or not it meets the positive and negative criteria, right? That's what we have to do, and the bulk variances, when you have a use variance, you really don't have standards, you know, for because the use is not permitted in the zone. So you really, they kind of fall into place with respect to the use variance. You approve them at the same time, but you're giving a use variance, and then you get to the bulk variances after that, and they're just, kind of accessory to the main use. So you have to decide whether the, property is particularly suited for this purpose, does it meet the purposes of zoning, and is the negative criteria met? Is it going to cause a detriment to your zone plan and to the neighboring properties? Have they offered conditions that they're willing to comply with to negate any of those effects? Those are the criteria that you're looking at.
I did want to offer, so you had quoted the purpose of the district out of the ordinance. So the board did adopt this local business, highway office, village, and residential land use element. I guess this was
2008.
May of '22. And I think Mr. Tykina covered this in his testimony, but it's probably worth repeating. There was a recommendation in here relative to the highway and office district and the highway corridors. And it's on page 45, it's number 1. It says, it is recommended that the highway and office district be amended to broaden the permitted uses. The township of East Amwell includes a significant amount of farmland and agriculture outside of the focus area of this land use element. The HO district, located along NJ 179, Route 202 and Route 31, provides an opportunity to permit uses that will support the local farming and agriculture uses. While the district permits office and medical uses, this plan recommends the township focus future economic development opportunities in the zone on activities that will support the local farming community. I will tell you just from research that I've done, the office vacancy rate in Hunterdon County right now is 50%.
We're not gonna get offices back.
50.
We're not gonna
And I
get.
think that's what this is saying. Look, we gotta kind of replace the office type uses with, and this is very similar to the use that's permitted, if you think about it. So this was just kind of reinforcing that a little bit, I think. But it's something to consider as far as, potential impairment to the intent purpose of the zone plan. Because this is the statement that the board adopted as, part of an element of the master plan.
So I'm thinking, since we've talked and it's 10:30, I'm gonna ask for a motion, and then, once we get the motion on the table, if we wanna discuss it anymore, we'll do that and take a vote.
Can I confirm who's
Yes.
voting? Because I heard you say 7.
Right.
So, yeah.
I have, okay. Well, Mr. McGovern, did you read all the background too?
Yes.
You all, okay, then we do, all right, then we have 7 members.
Great, got it.
And then 2 alternates, but they won't.
They
be
don't
voting.
vote. Got it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
How do I need to put this motion with all of these conditions
Yeah.
and how are we best?
Are we gonna
Katie, who's the alternate?
follow the planner's recommendation
You
and
wanna-
first decide it's gonna be?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Okay, so may I have a motion, can I have a motion just related to the variance?
I move that we require a D-variance for this application.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, can you take a vote just on whether we need the variance?
Mr. Cantinacci?
Yes.
Mr. Kadri?
Yes.
Mr. Kohut?
Yes.
Mr. Lathan?
Yes.
Mr. McGovern?
Yes.
Ms. Wiggum?
Yes.
And Ms. Deadweiler?
Yes, okay, so that's clear, we need a variance. Got that one now, thank you. So now, may I have a motion related to approval or non-approval here? I'm not gonna look for it. Ask for a motion for approval with all the conditions and then take
With
it down.
and then you have to discuss conditions, I think.
Okay, and then, my understanding is it's better to have a motion with conditions, and then even if it fails, you have the conditions or something. I'm trying to decide how to.
We have the conditions that they proposed, and we have the conditions that are also proposed by our engineer.
There was an additional one too that was stated on the record.
This
that-
one.
Yeah, but the one that said they would have no motorcycle gatherings on the property. That was,
And the 75% as well. That was an
75% of
condition.
the sales would have to be agricultural.
I had compliance with the lighting ordinance also, compliance with, the board engineer's requirements in this December letter. Amending the webpage and Facebook page to reflect the operations.
Were there any recommendations in your letter? I can't remember.
So I didn't write a letter for this because Mike Davis had written
That's
a
right.
technical review. I think probably the main concerns would be relative to landscaping. I think Ms. Kaczynski offered that if we go out there and there's additional landscaping needed, that they would provide it.
Correct.
So and the lighting, I think Mike had some comments about lighting. There was a recommendation for a nighttime lighting inspection by the township engineer, the building inspector. I mean, Kara, you guys saw Mike's letter. Do you take any issue with any of the recommendations?
I don't think so, to the extent not amended by the list of conditions.
Okay, so why don't we just say compliance with the December 11th, 2024 hire Gruel letter. Obviously, I'll take responsibility if the board would approve it to make sure those conditions are met, but
Okay.
that's, since I didn't write my own letter.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you had a couple things that, you mentioned about, amending the plans to fix the height on the table, to remove the extra facade sign.
Yep.
On the left-hand portion of the property.
Yep.
I think that's all that additional that I have here. So that's what it would be.
So I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve with all of these conditions, so that we have all the conditions on the record. I'm not like, pushing this either way, I just wanna make that the record.
I don't understand the motion.
I'm gonna ask for a motion. I'm recommending that we make it for approval so that we have all the conditions on the record, if it's approved.
I move that we approve the applicant's request for a variance with all of the conditions that have been enumerated.
I'll second.
You'll second that, okay.
Any other discussion? No?
Do we wanna have any discussion about it? Are we good to take a vote?
I'd like to have to have.
Or, go ahead.
I think the issue here, quite frankly, is very simple. And the issue is whether what he's selling, what he proposes to sell, right, are then support agriculture and support the local farming community, or whether they are ancillary recreational things that some people like to have, some people don't. I have, and I've lived here for 45 years, right? I've had children live on the property. I have had a child severely injured on a small bike because people thought that because they ran into a wire that was holding up a badminton thing. Children do things that we don't often want them to do. We had a case where a child was decapitated because a farmer put up wires because he was tired of having kids run through his fields with ATVs and the parents says, well, they were just riding around, yeah, and sometimes at 11 o'clock at night. We live in the Antelope Valley is basically it's farming. It's not farmettes. We have we have thousands of acres of farms that need to be farmed by farmers, and that's what is being done, and we have preserved the valley for that purpose.
Yeah.
yes, you know, do I have some of these vehicles? Yes, I have. I have both UTVs and an ATV on my farm. Are they presently used only for farming things? Yes, because I insist that be so. And the children are grown up and gone.
That's the real reason.
But, yes. And so I guess what I'm saying is we need to focus on whether or not this is the primary purpose of these vehicles for farming, or is the primary purpose of these vehicles for recreation? And most of the vehicles that I am seeing is the primary purpose is for recreation. And there are plenty of places to buy recreational vehicles. I don't see this as in any way supporting the farming community of East Amwell, what we call the farming community of East Amwell. Yes, there are a few farmettes in there, but for the most part, we're talking about major farms or people who, in my case, for example, I have a farmer who picks up 16 acres of my property, and it's, you know, I couldn't farm those 16 acres. Nobody could farm those 16 acres and make them profitable unless you farm them, unless you put it in a marijuana crop, which we clearly, you know, I mean, it's the reality. You can't, there's no such thing as a 16-acre, you know, farm anymore in New Jersey. You need, and that's what we're doing, and that's what the people who want to keep the valley in farmland, who want to keep our unique character, and it is very unique. It is, I mean, I live on Old Druid Road, 514. The opposite side of the road is the perfect example of what happens when a town decides that they, you know, we'll put a little development here, the little developments, all of a sudden, you have Raritan Township. There's the two townships could not be, they're night and day. The people in the town, in the towns are night and day. I mean, it's almost frightening to think that and the people that are attracted to the towns are night and day. We have a very unique place. East Amwell Township is very, very unique. We have a declining population. We just went through, I mean, we're gonna be able to do all of these things that God knows what some of these other towns are going to do, because they're gonna get more and more developed. And we have successfully, for 45 years, worked diligently to keep it as rural and as agricultural as possible. This is nothing like Sweet Valley Farms. Sweet Valley Farms is a big farmstead. I mean, and there is a farm. I mean, Sweet Valley Farm stand is for Sweet Valley Farms. I mean, that family's been here for 80 years.
What's that?
I need a break.
Okay.
There's a
Okay.
question.
Okay. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, just go ahead, yeah. Yeah, she's not voting on, yeah, okay, go ahead.
She's not.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm like,
It doesn't matter.
is there anyone else who wants to say something, or
I mean, there does seem to be a lot of tension around the actual products being sold. This is not a mid-state Kubota dealer. It's not an Everett's. It's not big tractors. It's not major farm equipment. I knew that the whole time watching the testimony. I wasn't really under any other, illusion. But it does come down to, like, do you consider UTVs and ATVs farming at all? And if not, then that's a problem. And I'm sure we each might have a different threshold as to what does qualify as farming equipment. But I mean, I don't know what percentage of your sales are actual tractors. I did Actually, I did look at the Bad Boy. I noticed the Bad Boy brand it's the only tractor you sell, right? That's the only brand.
No, we also sell Bobcat.
Oh, sorry, that's right. Yes, right, Bobcat. So I noticed also it wasn't a major part of your offering, and my guess is, yeah, the actual tractors with front loaders and what, it's probably not a huge percentage of your sales. It's more the UTVs and ATVs. Is qualifying it as your farm sales? Is that a fair statement, or?
No, I mean, again, as my.
Are we closed?
Sorry,
This is what I'm
yeah, sorry about
trying
that.
to like.
Sorry, I'm not
I'm
sure,
saying
I'd
it.
love to
No,
answer
you're right.
questions.
Yeah, like, I mean, we can reopen if we need to.
No, it's too
if
late,
you
but
need-
yeah, you're right.
Okay.
But that was my take on it. I agreed that that Bad Boy brand was not a Kubota, it's not a John Deere, it's not a full-on like farm equipment. But again, ATVs and UTVs are used on farms often, and so it's a bit subjective in that sense to each of us as to whether we
Okay.
consider that.
I'm gonna ask you to take a vote.
Okay. Mr. Catenacci?
To restate, this is a vote to approve with conditions.
No.
Mr. Kadri?
Yes.
Mr. Kohut?
No.
Mr. Lathan?
Yes.
Mr. McGovern?
No.
Ms. Wiggum?
Yes.
And Ms. Deadweiler?
No. What is the vote?
Wasn't 5 yes, so.
It's no. I wasn't.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Motion's no. Yes, no. I mean, I can just take order.
I can just take the plans, yeah.
I realize I've seen you. Oh, okay. May I have a motion to close, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? May I have a second? Without objection, this meeting is adjourned. I know, I think.